Here again, man. Yeah. More Epstein files have been released, guys. People like Michael Jackson, Chris Tucker, Bill Clinton. I was like, wow, guys. That's crazy. Seems like everybody, Bill Gates, a whole bunch of people is entwined with Jeffrey Epstein. What's up, Miss Pooh Bear? As the DOJ drags their feet, basically in releasing these files to the public, guys. It's a lot going on. I was like, wow, man. Seems like they're gonna hold Pam Bundy in contempt for not releasing the files on time. What you got going, Miss Pooh Bear? That's crazy. They steady dropping them. A brand new batch dropped today. What's up, Purple Groovy? Shout out to everybody in the building, man. Yeah, I was blown away. I'm like, wow. Look like it's some more docs that came out that implicate Trump, guys. Basically trying to put him in a bad light. They basically say that those that paperwork is fake. I said, whoa, what's up, positive vibes? We in the building. What's up? What's up? Shout out to y'all. Shout out to y'all. Y'all ready to kick this off? No, we got a lot going on, man. We got a lot going on. We got a lot to get to. Hey, what's up, Yana? You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody in the building, man. Yeah, look like they're going to pursue some charges on Pam Bundy for contempt for her taking her precious little time to release these documents, not releasing them all at once, but releasing them one after the other type thing. We got a lot going on. Absolutely. 15 months in the game. Shout out to Yana. Y'all already know what it is. Can y'all hear me good out there? Let me know if y'all can hear me good. Make sure this is all the way up. Yeah, man. It's crazy. But yeah, man, a bunch of pictures. It tripped me out to see Michael Jackson in some of these pictures. Know the allegations that hunted him, throughout his lifetime, with people accusing him of doing this and doing that. So for him to pop up in these pictures with Jeffrey Epstein was something too. I'm like, wow, he got Michael Jackson over there. Chris Tucker. Yes, we hear you. Okay. Hey, Karen. Yes, the Epstein files, the new batch, have dropped. They've been dropping stuff, all week. Every other day has been a new batch coming out. And this is the latest drop that they have dropped. And yeah, man, it's crazy, y'all. What's up, Well Informed? Thinking she can do what she wants to do, huh? Yeah, basically. So they looking to put charges on Bundy. Hold her in contempt for not going through with the court's orders. You know what I'm saying? Let's check this out.
Hey, nothing like a Christmas Eve news jump. Today we got yet another document dump in the ongoing release of the Epstein files, and a few things remain true. And we've gone through our amazing...
Shout out to Miss Pooh Bear for being a member for the last 15 months. She says, happy holidays. Please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel, man. Yeah, make sure y'all double tapping that screen. That's how you hit the like button. Or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hitting the like button helps out the channel. What's up, my keeper? How you doing?
Team here at MS Now has gone through a lot of this as much as they can. I mean, one, despite a legal requirement based on a law that was passed, again, remember this, with near unanimous support to release all the relevant documents by last Friday, only a fraction of that material is available as of yet, even after the news dump today. Two, the Justice Department continues to redact vast swaths of information, and in many cases, those redactions don't seem to have logical explanations, really at all, and we'll talk about that. But despite all of that, this batch probably, of the batches, had the most new information about Jeffrey Epstein, his criminal enterprise, and the many attempts to hold him accountable. Now, perhaps the biggest bombshell in today's dump of files is this July 2019 email exchange between DOJ officials.
10 co-conspirators, guys. What do y'all think? That could be up to... I thought Bundy said there was no more action to be taken. But this paperwork here says that there were 10 co-conspirators. Now tell me who they was.
suggesting that investigators were looking at 10 potential Epstein co-conspirators at the time. That's obviously huge news, since to this day, only one Epstein co-conspirator has ever been charged in the case, and that's, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell. But in this email exchange, the names of most of those suspected co-conspirators are redacted. And it's really not clear why, especially because the law mandating the release of these files does not allow redactions on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. I mean, the whole reason so many people have demanded the release of these files was to expose the people who participated in Epstein's crimes without consequence.
And then, shout out to Miss Karen Spencer for being a member for the last 15 months. She says, happy holiday season. Shout out to y'all, man. Make sure y'all double tapping that screen. Get the lights up. It helps out the channel. If you're on a mobile device, double tap your screen or click those 3 dots. Hit that thumbs up, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're new.
There may be even more information on potential co-conspirators that the Justice Department is still holding on to. I mean, another email that appears to be from a federal prosecutor in New York reveals the existence of a 7-page memo on, quote, co-conspirators we could potentially charge. The email also mentions an apparently updated 86-page co-conspirator memo that appears to have been drafted later in 2019, as well as a corporate prosecution memo that is 13 pages. And to be clear, we don't know why that email was drafted. But so far, it does not appear that any of these memos have been released by the Justice Department. And again, exposing potential co-conspirators is a big reason that Epstein survivors have been fighting to release these files. This is not just a story about what Donald Trump did or didn't know. I mean, of course, that's important. He's the president of the United States right now. But it is about a much larger cover-up of rich, well-connected men who preyed on young women.
Are they covering this up? Let me know your opinion in the chat. Is this a cover-up attempt?
By Jeffrey Epstein. So when I learned about some of what was in these files and some of the big questions it still leaves out there, I was immediately reminded of what Charlene Richard told me earlier this year concerning what survivors know but still cannot say about who participated in Epstein's crimes. Are these people, when the list is released, that people would know? Are they people who are famous in some capacity?
Yes.
And are there names out there that have not been out there yet?
Yes.
That you were trafficked to?
There's names
of people. This is one of the survivors, guys.
That are not on the list.
All of that is a reminder that there's still a lot we don't know about the people who enabled, abetted, or participated in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. I mean, today, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer responded to DOJ's decision to redact the names of those Epstein co-conspirators, saying the Department of Justice needs to shed more light on who was on the list, how they were involved, and why they chose not to prosecute. Protecting possible co-conspirators is not the transparency the American people in Congress are demanding. No question about that. I mean, today's file dump also shed light on other aspects of the Epstein investigation with even more bizarre and difficult to explain redactions. I mean, for instance, in one file, 2 unnamed people who appear to be investigators correspond via email about a photo one of them claims to have obtained from the cell phone of former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, who I should note has not been accused of wrongdoing in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. But the email reads, quote, I've been looking through Steve Bannon's phone. Quote, I found an image of Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell on Bannon's phone. See screenshot attached. Then there's a large redaction covering whatever the sender attached to the bottom of the message. Now, why is it redacted? We don't know. In another file released today, someone at the Department of Justice alerted a colleague in 2020 that, quote, Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times.
Trump. Boy, a lot of Trumps in there.
And previously has been reported. Now, of course, we've known for years now that Trump's name appears multiple times on the flight logs for Epstein's private jet, despite Trump's assertions as recently as last year that, quote, I was never on Epstein's plane. Well, we know that's not true now. We've known it. But this 2020 email from a DOJ official sheds new light on who accompanied Trump and Epstein on some of those flights, including one flight in 1993 where the only passengers listed were Epstein, Trump, and a then 20-year-old whose name is redacted.
Leticia.
Now, the DOJ official goes on to note that on the 2 other flights with Trump, 2 of the passengers, respectfully, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. That's what we know at this point. We also learned from these documents today that in 2021, the Justice Department subpoenaed Trump's Mar-a-Lago club for employment records. We don't know whose employment records they were seeking, but we do know that Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre had previously been employed at Mar-a-Lago. There are also new revelations about other public figures as well. I mean, one file released today shows an email addressed to Ghislaine Maxwell in 2001, which appears to come from the person formerly known as Prince Andrew.
Prince Andrew.
The man who vaguely himself identifies himself vaguely as A, vaguely asks if Maxwell has found him some, quote, new inappropriate friends. We've reached out to the royal family for clarification on that. And have you-
We got to get these lights up, guys. If you're on the mobile device, double tap that screen or simply click those 3 dots in the right-hand corner. Hit that thumbs up, guys. It helps out the channel. If you're new, you know what I'm saying, most definitely subscribe. This is everything that we're finding out about this new batch of Epstein files that have been released, guys. Double tap that screen. Get the likes up.
Yet to hear back. Now, the documents released today also include images of what appears to be a fake Austrian passport with Jeffrey Epstein's photo under a different name. Another email chain from the day of Epstein's death suggests that U.S. Attorney's Office was left in the dark for hours after Epstein was found dead in his prison cell. As someone from that office complained, quote, "It has now been hours since this was reported publicly. It is extraordinarily frustrating to have to tell Epstein's attorneys that we have less information than the press." There's also an email in which Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, appears to be explaining why his office never consulted Epstein's victims before granting Epstein a sweetheart deal. His office was later found to have broken the law by not doing exactly that, by the way. So we're learning different new things about the Epstein case in these documents. We're getting some new insight into Epstein's criminal behavior, new details about how prosecutors bungled the case against him. But answers to the big questions concerning who knew about Epstein's crimes and who may have participated in them are still shrouded in a lot of black ink. The DOJ is still required by law to release that information, and the members of Congress who wrote that law are holding them to account. This week, Congressman Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie threatened Attorney General Pam Bondi with inherent contempt charges if the full Epstein files are not released. And Congressman Ro Khanna joins me here now. He's the lead co-sponsor of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which required the Justice Department to release all of the Epstein files by last week. Again, just to restate for everyone, thank you for being here with me. I just kind of highlighted some of the big pieces that stuck out to me and what the incredible team has started to comb through here. It really raises a whole lot more questions than are answered. But what did I miss there in my run through?
You got the central fact, which is a document came out saying there are 10 co-conspirators of Epstein that weren't charged. And the reality is
10 co-conspirators, guys. Bundy and them said there was nobody else to look at. But the files say there were 10 other people to look at. 10 co-conspirators, guys.
talking to survivors lawyers.
Well-informed,
there are a whole
super
group
crazy
of rich and powerful men, many of them on Wall Street in
What's up,
finance, some
Charlie?
politicians who have been named, who were at the Epstein Island or abused these girls or covered it up, and none of those names have come out. Now, there's a simple way we know for those to come out. They're the 302 FBI witness interviews with these survivors. How do I know those names are in there? Because the survivors have told me that they told the FBI about these names. The survivors' lawyers were in those FBI interview memorandum. None of them have come out. They're
What's
all
up,
required to
Queen?
come out by law. And you see now the Justice Department backpedaling and really scrambling. They did not anticipate that MAGA would be so upset with the impartial release.
The 10 co-conspirators really stuck out to me. We saw Leader Schumer also call that out. Oh, let's give you a moment there. We'll give him a moment to come back to get his headpiece.
All right, there you
It's
go.
all right.
Thank you.
It's a Christmas Eve.
Yes.
All sorts of things happen. And we'll give you a moment. I just was saying that it really stuck out to me, the 10 co-conspirators. It also stuck out to Leader Schumer, clearly stuck out to you. We don't know who the majority of these people are. Let me just start by asking you this. In the law that you wrote, is there anything that would require the redaction of individuals from what was released?
No, quite the contrary. When Massey and I wrote the law, it's a two-page law, we actually said that you cannot consider reputational harm. You cannot consider embarrassment. You cannot consider the fact that someone was not charged. And what we see is that the Department of Justice, frankly, and this is not exaggeration, is more concerned about hurting the reputation of the rich and powerful men who abuse the survivors than they are protecting the survivors. When it came to the survivors, they've released the names. In one case, a survivor's
What's
name
up,
was
Mr.
released
Busy?
in a horrible way. And she then asked why the FBI file which she was mentioned in was not released. They didn't release the file she's mentioned in, though she's requesting
What's up,
it,
Thug?
and they released her name. So they're breaking the law very clearly.
All right, so that was a little bit on what was released today. Let's get some more on what's going on with Bundy, guys.
Fallout, and it continues over the Justice Department's failure to meet the deadline to release all, that's what the law requires, all of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna and Republican Congressman Thomas Massey, they authored the law, announced late last night that they will bring inherent contempt charges against Attorney General Pam Bondi. In a statement, Khanna
say they bringing
called
them
the
charges,
DOJ's failure
guys.
to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, quote, an obstruction of justice, unquote. CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen joins me now. Jake, walk me through what this means that the two lawmakers are trying to set in motion and what it might mean for the Attorney General, if anything.
Well, what it might mean, Major, is a potential $5,000 a day fine after a 30-day grace period. Our audience will remember on the 19th of this month is when these Epstein files were due in full to be delivered to the American people in some kind of searchable format. That has not happened. We've seen a trickle come out even as early as overnight from Monday into Tuesday. The Department of Justice has said these filings and these drops of documents are going to continue as attorneys continue to sort through them, redact sensitive information, and then release them. But again, the language of the law was very clear, which is what Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey have pointed to, which is that these files should have come out on the 19th in full. What this would mean is potentially a $5,000 a day fine, if not potentially moving further to hold attorney.
A $5,000 a day fine for every day that all the files aren't out. Does that sound good? You know, if Bundy is held in contempt, that's possibly what they would have to pay the DOJ for every day that they slow walk releasing these files, guys.
General Bondi and potentially Deputy Attorney General Blanche in contempt of Congress. That being said, Major, Khanna said on a media appearance earlier this week that this really is not about those two. It's about President Trump and holding these powerful men who were associated with Jeffrey Epstein accountable. As you know, there are a number of documents potentially relating to co-conspirators who were never indicted that he wants to see released. And he said that that's really what this is about, forcing information that has not yet been out before this 30-day grace period. He's willing to give these members of the Department of Justice out.
Jake, picking up on that thread, in his statement, Congressman Khanna specifically referenced the newest batch of files that contained information that contradicted things FBI Director Kash Patel had previously testified about. Are there any potential ramifications there?
Well, it's really difficult to hold the FBI and Department of Justice in any kind of accountability measure, Major, because the eventual enforcer of that is themselves, or if not, the executive branch. But FBI Director Kash Patel did say, testifying before Congress, that there was no evidence.
Do y'all think we'll ever get all these files, guys?
That Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women to other potential unindicted co-conspirators. What we do know is that there were internal documents not released yet, but referred to in emails that have been released, citing potentially 10 unindicted co-conspirators who we did not know about.
Citing 10 unarrested,
for this, but as we kind of have seen this machination, these slow dribbles come out, that's really what we're looking forward to. And whether the Department of Justice, which said they're actively investigating any kind of potential fallout of this, could potentially go after and potentially prosecute these people if they choose to do so when these documents come out.
Public interest is large, and there may be public pressure brought to bear.
All right, so there was more right there on Bundy. Could be held in contempt for her slow acting on releasing these files, right? Let's go. Hey, man, we got more, man. It's so much going on, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, when they say, this one here says everybody was friendly with Epstein. Yeah, everybody. Michael Jackson, Chris Tucker, Bill Clinton, you know what I'm saying? Bill Gates. What was some other people I seen off in there? It was a lot of people in these pictures, guys. Clinton appeared a bunch of times, though. Let's check this out.
Former CIA officer and FBI special agent Tracy Walder. Tracy, happy holidays to you. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. Lots of documents here. What is your biggest takeaway from what has been released as part of this now 90-day deadline?
Well, first of all, happy holidays to you too, Nicole. A couple things. I think the first, obviously, is the letter. Some issues that I see with that is the FBI was done redacting the documents back in March. And so my biggest question is if the DOJ was going through all of these documents to make sure that things about potential upcoming cases, minors, all of that were not in them, then why was this letter not?
Can we get 40 more people on that like button, y'all? Double tap that screen. We need 40 more likes. Double tap the screen if you have not. That's how you hit the like button, guys, if you're on a mobile device. Or click the 3 dots in the right-hand corner, hit that thumbs up. We need 40 more likes, guys. Get the likes over 100. You know what I'm saying? Hitting the like button helps out the channel. I ain't asked you for no money. I asked you to hit the like button if you don't mind. Shout out to everybody in the building.
Taken out at that time if they used all of this time to go through all of the documents. The second piece is the fact that the FBI was warned on 2 separate occasions, both in 1996, that Epstein was potentially engaged in illegal activities with underage children and seemingly did nothing about it. It doesn't seem like an investigation or a case, was opened. And I find that to be very concerning.
I do want to talk more about that as well. First, let's listen to some of what we have heard from President Trump when it comes to all of this.
Let's go.
This whole thing is with Epstein is a way of trying to deflect from the tremendous success that the Republican Party has. Like, for instance, today we're building the biggest ships in the world, most powerful ships in the world, and they're asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. There are photos of me, too. Everybody was friendly with this guy. Either friendly or not friendly, but he was around. He was all over Palm Beach and other places.
All right, so Tracy, you mentioned some of the redactions. There was a lot of redactions here, but portions of some of these released files were not properly redacted. And that means some of the censored information can actually be revealed by copying and pasting into a separate file. How and why do you think something like that happens?
Nicole, I don't even know where to start with that. As someone that actually wrote a book and had to have that book properly redacted by the CIA, because there are redactions in my book as well, you can't do that with my book. So either this was done in a very haphazard way, which I suspect that might be the case, it wasn't double checked, or certain ones were done on purpose. I don't know what I believe, if you want me to be completely honest with you, but there is no excuse for that. I think that is extremely problematic. And the Trump administration, if they want to look at it as a success, releasing these documents is something that Trump did campaign on. So this is a success in terms of releasing them. And so if they had all of this time to redact them and thousands of FBI agents working on that to redact them, why it wasn't done properly is beyond me, because I was able to do the proper redactions within 14 days in my own book.
Wow. Okay. So now let's go back to what you had mentioned there. There is a lot of focus on whether or not the FBI did drop the ball by not.
Ain't that that looked like the Freddy Krueger dude? Is that the guy that played Freddy Krueger on Nightmare on Elm Street that's standing right here talking to Epstein, or am I wrong? He looked like old dude that played Freddy Krueger. I'm just saying.
Properly investigating complaints against Epstein, at least about a decade before investigators really did start, scrutinizing and zeroing in on his predatory behavior. I do want to talk about that, but first, how does the FBI even determine which reports are credible? Because there certainly are going to be reports in these files that are not all true.
100%. I mean, that's normal. And people come in and out of FBI
Bill
offices
Clinton
as
and
walk-ins and those kinds of things all of the time. It's my understanding the individual who made this particular claim had gone to local law enforcement. They told her then to take that to the FBI because typically that is what the FBI investigates. So you walk into the office. This was 96, so I'm assuming it wasn't an online tip. You walk into the office or you call the office and you make that complaint with them. Then the FBI has to do its due diligence, whether they believe it or not, whether someone comes in a tinfoil hat or not. You have to investigate that claim. And so a case would have been opened to conduct that investigation. To me, it seems like essentially she was just blown off, which is unacceptable.
So you would say, do you think the FBI dropped the ball? And why do you think that would have happened?
I mean, I'm going to be very blunt. I do think that they dropped the ball. Just
Did they drop
obviously
it
as
on
someone who
purpose?
I used to sit on a tip desk at a new age as a
Did
new
they
agent.
drop
That's
it
very
on
common.
purpose?
I'm not sure that it was done on purpose, if you want me to be completely honest with you. I have seen it all. I have seen agents, tip agents, make fun of individuals that come in and make claims and then don't do anything with them. I see agents that are
Positive vibes,
completely
say
inundated
yes.
with the amount of claims and just simply can't wade through all of them. And then I have seen ones that, you know, obviously are brushed off for whatever kind of reasons.
Thank you for watching.
All right, you know what I'm saying? Because this is Epstein Day. We covering everything I done seen in Epstein. Remember, I told y'all it was a let off inside of these newly released files that kind of pointed the finger at Trump, guys. Let's go there. This is also one of the survivors as well. Let's go.
The Justice Department released a new batch of documents in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, including chilling new evidence that some viewers may find disturbing. This is a jailhouse letter, apparently written by Jeffrey Epstein. It says J. Epstein, and it was sent to another infamous sex offender. That would be Larry Nassar. The letter appears to include a reference to President Trump.
Oh, Trump!
President Trump is not accused of any criminal wrongdoing. And
that's the letter right there, guys.
Jeffrey Epstein's abuse, Haley Robeson, a short time ago. Here's what she said. And DOJ says some of these things are salacious and there's no truth behind it. That's the statement it just released. But what do you think about the mention of Trump in that letter and what it said?
I think it's very apparent in that specific letter that was just publicized from the Epstein files. I think it's very apparent that there are a group of men that enjoy the company of young women and children.
Thank you, Ballin.
I think
Thank you,
that
Ms.
letter
Boober.
emphasizes that he knew what was going on. And that complicity is enough for me to know you have no business being in the position of power.
Strong words there from Haley Robeson. Let's go live now to CNN senior reporter Marshall Cohen join us here in the Situation Room. So walk us through that letter. What did it actually say, Marshall?
Yeah, Pam. So let's be really clear about what we know and what we don't know. We have actually been aware for a couple years that Epstein tried to send a letter, or maybe did send a letter, to Nassar from prison. That's been out there. Mm-hmm. We have never seen it before, and it apparently was in the drop today from the Justice Department. It was written to LN, Larry Nassar.
This is the letter that he wrote, Epstein wrote to the Nassar guy, who was also an offender, you know, while he was in jail, that kind of implicated Trump, guys.
Envelope, and it was signed by J. Epstein. And it was postmarked just a couple days after Epstein's suicide. No conspiracy there. It's not too crazy to think that prison officials will need to look at stuff before it goes out in the mail. So it's dated just a few days after that suicide, and I will read for you what it said. And as you mentioned, Pam, it's kind of disturbing. This is the letter, quote, "As you know by now, I have taken the short route home.
Some are saying this is fake.
We shared one thing, our love and caring for young ladies and the hope that they'd reach their full potential. Our president also shares our love of young nubile girls," which is obviously the disgusting words of one sexual predator to another. But I should make clear that Donald Trump has never been accused of any sexual wrongdoing by law enforcement, and obviously he's never been charged with any of these Epstein-related crimes.
And so the short route home reference, do we think that's him talking about dying by suicide? Because it came out a few days after,
The
right?
timeline would seem
See, they
to
say
suggest
fake.
Yeah.
Some people say that's fake.
We're also seeing this 2021 Mar-a-Lago subpoena relating to the Ghislaine Maxwell case. This is new, right? Do we not know about the subpoena to Mar-a-Lago?
I didn't know about it. And
Okay.
A subpoena to Mar-a-Lago, to Trump
out there
House.
before our colleague Michael
Mar-a-Lago.
Williams found it this morning in the batch of 30,000 documents, a subpoena sent by the Justice Department to Mar-a-Lago October 2021, just a few weeks before the start of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. It is redacted, but it is clear through the redactions that they were looking for employment records about someone. We don't know who. But I should point out that we do know that there was one very well-known person that did work at Mar-a-Lago and was actually recruited to work for Epstein, and that was Virginia Giuffre.
What's up, Chris?
Who was one of Epstein's victims. Not sure if the subpoena is about her, but there's been a lot of talk about her being at both Mar-a-Lago and Epstein's estate, and she died by suicide earlier this year.
Yeah, very sad. How is the DOJ responding to all of these revelations? Because it put out a statement with this batch, but not the first one.
They went on the offensive this morning and on offense to defend Donald Trump. Let me read for you what they put out in a tweet this morning as they rolled out this batch of tens of thousands of files. They said some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, these claims are unfounded and false. If they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against Trump already. So framing the entire conversation right off the bat to say, if you see stuff about Trump, don't believe it. But as the woman...
If you see stuff about Trump, don't believe it. What in the world? Yeah, man, say what? Let's hear that again. If he said, they're saying, well, whoever is saying that if you see anything about Trump, don't believe it. Wow,
Against
it's
Trump
AI.
already. So framing the entire conversation right off the bat to say, if you see stuff about Trump, don't believe it. But as the woman you just spoke to in the last hour made clear, there's a lot of stuff in here that has been vetted and verified. Maxwell was convicted. Epstein, before he was charged with the federal case, he had been convicted in a state case 20 years earlier. So, the Justice Department sort of massaging the situation here, trying to defend Trump. But as we've seen, there's a lot of stuff in here that has been verified and has vindicated a lot of those victims.
All right, Marshall Cohen, thank you as always. I know you and the team have a lot of work going through these documents.
I want to bring in Nick Ackerman, former Assistant Special Watergate Prosecutor. He joins us by phone. So, Nick, a letter like that from Jeffrey Epstein in the days before he took his own life, Epstein, of course, who had a plea deal from years before and was accused of sexual abuse at the time he wrote it, a letter like that written to another sex abuser.
There go that letter
Does it have any
again.
legal significance?
Well, I don't know how much legal significance it has. It certainly corroborates what we've heard from other victims, that Donald Trump had an inclination to grab women and misuse his position in various ways before he became president. And it's consistent with all these other people have said. And it's also consistent with
Do y'all think it's a setup? Let me know.
Trump's 50th birthday wish to Jeffrey Epstein. So whether or not this would be admissible in a court of law is a whole different story. But certainly from a political standpoint and from the fact that this is something that Jeffrey Epstein was saying, we know that they were very close and they're very good friends, and that this is pretty damning. To go on with this letter, it says in that letter, when a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab, snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system, meaning the prison system. And he signed it saying, "Life is unfair, yours, J. Epstein." So you've got two, essentially, abusers that are writing to each other. And in the course of that, Jeffrey Epstein references Donald Trump, who has gotten away with all of this.
Now, did y'all hear what the letter said? When a woman walks by, I can't help but to grab on her. What was Trump famous line? He said, "You got to grab them where? Oh, wow. This letter is pretty much, it just said the same thing. Epstein wrote it to another offender. That's crazy.
It is worth noting, obviously, that President Trump or Donald Trump not charged with anything in connection with Jeffrey Epstein at all. It's also possible that Jeffrey Epstein was trying to stick it to Donald Trump, who was president at this point, the moment that the letter was written. Of greater, perhaps, legal significance, Nick, is the other information that came out overnight. A letter written by an attorney for the Southern District of New York, which indicated, and this is a verbatim, that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously had been recorded or that we were aware. And at times, on two of the flights, two of the passengers were women who would be possible witnesses in a Ghislaine Maxwell case. Now, again, this letter was written at the time, late in Donald Trump's first term when he was president, but the idea that Trump had been on a plane with two people who were witnesses, potentially, in a federal case. What's the significance there?
Well, the significance is that Donald Trump would, of course, be a potential witness as well, which means that he could have been called at the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. So that's pretty shocking, the fact that he could have been called as a witness. That's something
crazy, y'all. This is crazy.
Reported before. And it also goes to Donald Trump's knowledge of what Epstein was doing.
Who would ever thought that there were really rich and powerful men out here preying on young girls? Man, this whole thing is crazy, y'all. You know what I'm saying? It's like the richer they become, the nastier they get. They be accused of doing some pretty nasty things. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow, this is crazy, y'all. This seemed like something out of a movie or something, a book. You know, wealthy billionaires, you know, doing the unthinkable to little ones. It's crazy, y'all. It's really people, like, hey, y'all ever sat back and thought, like, man, it's really people out here doing this. They really doing this. It's some rich billionaire nasty. Oh, my goodness. Super nasty men, I guess, and women that's out here doing something like this. This doesn't even seem real, but it is. It's like, wow, man, this is crazy.
Yet he's been backing off at every point he can, claiming that he had no idea that Jeffrey Epstein was doing anything illegal. But as these Epstein files come out with the drip, 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 we have learned that Donald Trump knew a bit more than he's acknowledged. For example, there's the email of April 2nd, 2011, where
6470, I can lose you by talking. All I got to do is get a word, and my moderators will get you out of here quicker than Trump deporting immigrants. You know what I'm saying? Don't worry about what I lost. Worry about what I gained.
It reflects an email between Epstein and Maxwell, where it says that Donald Trump spent hours in Epstein's house with Virginia, who was one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual escapades.
Of course, Virginia Giuffre, before she died, said that Donald Trump did not do anything wrong or untoward. And it's also worth noting that the plane trips in question here were between 1993 and 1996. A time before Epstein was charged with anything.
All right, so that was a little bit, about that letter, guys, that allegedly points the finger at Trump. I'm just saying. All right, how are the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein feeling about this? Here's one of them.
An Epstein survivor. Marina, thank you for coming on, and I just want to get your reaction to what we've been seeing unfold over the course of several hours. First, a video that purported to show a suicidal Jeffrey Epstein that is now fake. It's unclear why that would have been posted. Now you have this supposed letter that they're suggesting is fake. I can't even imagine, but what has this been like for you?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me here.
This is a Jeffrey Epstein survivor, guys.
I think it's been a roller coaster of emotions for all of us. We went from, very happy, very excited, where we've reached somewhere to now being very disappointed and aggravated and frustrated and upset with all the things that have come to light. We feel like that all these files that have been out are already out. These are files that aren't the files, right? Like it's what yesterday was.
She said the stuff that's out has already been out. These are like the files, but not really the files. There's some dressed up files. We want the real files. That's what the victim said.
About this is all trash. Okay, none of this makes sense. You said it yourself. There's no context to these pictures. There's nothing explaining it. We have now, false documents. It's come to the point where we can't even trust our government.
So there is in this new batch of files a highly redacted email exchange from DOJ officials in 2019. It references efforts to contact 10 co-conspirators. Do you feel like that is something
co-conspirators,
that can be pursued, that might be able to get you closer to justice and accountability? Again, assuming that it's legit.
Well, we think that that is legit, and we need help with that. We need to find out who are these 10 co-conspirators, because this is the whole point about having transparency, right? And I think we have gotten nothing but trash. These files that are out are from the 2019 indictment. It has nothing to do with what happened within 2008 and what happened in 1996. And my biggest question, I think all the survivors want to know, is why haven't we?
She says, what about the other ones? The ones, listen to the dates she's saying that we're getting right now. Listen.
And co-conspirators, because this is the whole point about having transparency, right? And I think we have gotten nothing but trash. These files that are out are from the 2019 indictment. It has nothing to do with what happened within 2008 and what happened in 1990.
So she's saying the ones y'all are getting now are from like 2018. You know what I'm saying? But she like, what's up with 2008? On, those years right there, it was some things going on then. She said we only getting pieces, guys. We ain't even up to date. We're not even all the way, getting all of the facts. We just getting some of them.
And my biggest question, I think all the survivors want to know, is why haven't we brought up an investigation to the fact that Maria Farmer has made this claim? We need to open up an investigation why the FBI or the DOJ has not followed up with that. That is very important for us.
Have you even been at any point notified by DOJ when a document drop is coming?
They have not warned us. They have not reached out to us. They might have attempted, I should say, to say they wanted to talk to us, but they have not made any effort to speak to us. And we find that extremely disrespectful. And again, another slap in our faces.
So as you look forward, and it seems like there is just a small percentage of the available documents in the so-called Epstein files that have been released so far. Are there one or two things that you hope come out that you truly believe have not been made public that should be known to the American public and should be accessible to you?
Well, we need to know, a lot of the files that have been out, have been very, have been redacted extremely wrong, right? When we look at it, they've redacted all these important, wealthy, men, and then they have unredacted our names, which have now put us also at risk, right? We always wonder whether is this misconduct, is it negligence? Like
over 550 blank, basically blank, but they're completely redacted pages put out in all of this as well. What's up with these blank pages? What
is really going on here, right? So we really would like for, if we look at these files, look at this. This is a circus act. Like I've said it last night, this is ridiculous to the American people, and the whole world is watching. We would like to ask the DOJ to do their job and unredact the names that need to be out there, and let's stop protecting these men.
Do you have any sense of what's going on? I mean, why this is delayed, why we're getting potentially pieces of information that turn out to be false and then they release them anyway?
This information is nothing that we are even looking for. That's the sad part about this. None of this makes sense. Everyone is completely confused. us survivors that know the story are confused. Can you imagine the public? We were just like looking for things that we don't even know how to look for them. When we go in the search library, it's very hard to find things. And everything that we do find there, it's just a 2019 indictment. So it really, it has brought no transparency whatsoever at this point. And we are very frustrated. We are really hoping that if the next batch of files does come out, we want to see the report for 1996. We want to know why the FBI or the DOJ or the government has not followed up with Maria Farmer. This is something very serious. This young woman made, a serious accusation, and not an accusation, a claim. And if it was just an accusation, why didn't they look into it further, right? If nobody thought it was real, why didn't they look into it? Why isn't there not an investigation being opened right now? This is something very, very serious. This could have stopped a long time ago. And now here we are, where many women have been abused, and now we're trying to, put all the pieces to the puzzle together, and the DOJ is just making it very hard for everybody.
Marie.
All right, so that was an interview from one of the victims right there, guys, where she's saying we're getting 2018 information. What about 2008 information? All right, let's go to some of these pictures, guys. My people over here at Law and Crime most definitely broke it down. It says 30 photos from Epstein dump that will blow your mind, guys. Let's go.
Down every major photo in the latest materials released from the House Oversight Committee as they investigate the deceased financier and sex offender. And we're going to explain why each photo matters and what its context is in the larger overall story. Welcome to
Let's go.
It's Opus trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Now, instead of just rushing out an episode on Friday when they were all released and say, oh, this is this, we said, let's take a minute, let's pause. Let's not only show all of these photos, but explain the context. Explain why they matter. What is it about? What does it mean? Why is it important? That is what we're going to do right now. Now, to be clear, these photos are not from the Department of Justice's release. You know how this is happening relatively soon. The DOJ has been ordered to release every Epstein file in their possession after Trump signed into law a bill requiring just that. We did an episode of Sidebar with CNN's Ellie Honig on what we can expect there. No, these photos that we're talking about today are from Epstein's estate that were released pursuant to a subpoena from the committee. In fact, to give you some context here, here is a press release from the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, the Democrats. Representative Robert Garcia, ranking member of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, released the following statement after the Oversight Committee received new photos from the Epstein estate. This latest production contains over 95,000 photos, including images of the wealthy and powerful men who spent time with Jeffrey Epstein. Images also included thousands of photographs of women and Epstein properties. Oversight Democrats are reviewing the full set of photos and will continue to release photos to the public in the days and weeks ahead. Now, this part's important. Committee Democrats are committed to protecting the identities of the survivors. Quote, it is time to end this White House cover-up and bring justice to the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and his powerful friends. These disturbing photos raise even more questions about Epstein and his relationships with some of the most powerful men in the world. We will not rest until the American people get the truth. The Department of Justice must release all the files now. So to be clear, I'm not going over 95,000 photos. That's not what's been released. There is a certain selection of photos that have been released. Why these have been selected to be released is interesting. And to think about this, there is no time frame of these photos, when they were taken, where they were taken, the context. We can kind of get a little bit of understanding about that. I'm going to do my best to explain it. But why these were selected, and without an explanation, can talk about that. But let's start going over them, and we got to start with the Trump of it all. So there is a photo of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together at what appears to be a party or social event. There's also a photo of Trump and a blonde woman with her face redacted out in a black box. There is also, same thing, photo of Donald Trump with 6 women wearing leis. Their faces are all redacted out in black boxes. They're at some sort of public event. Now, why are they blacked out? Is this to say they're victims? Is this to say they're survivors? Are their faces blacked out for privacy purposes? I will say
now, see, that's part of what they got going on. You know, the unneeded redactions, as the Democrats said. You know, which they pose the question: why are these ladies' faces redacted? Are they victims? Are they witnesses? Why are their faces redacted? Y'all let me know.
Interesting, because the New York Post provided more clarity on this. They obtained 2 unredacted photos in this batch. One is this group of women with Trump, and the other is of that blonde woman with Trump. To be clear, we're not going to show you the unredacted photos. We got the redacted ones. That's what we're going to show. However, according to purportedly one of the women in that group shot, she spoke to the Telegraph, according to the Post, and said, "I was 22 years old and remember him being very nice. He was very gentlemanly." That's the word to describe him. The outlet reports that the women were supposedly models representing the suntan lotion brand Hawaiian Tropic, that this was at Mar-a-Lago. It's believed that the photo maybe was taken in 1998. We don't know for sure. To be clear, though, there is no evidence of wrongdoing here or that they're victims in any way. So it is interesting and raises the question why their faces are blurred out without more of an explanation. I will tell you, author Michael Wolff, who we've talked about here on Sidebar, we've talked about him before, given his past correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein, somebody who has documented the life of Donald Trump in recent years. He spoke about these photos on the Daily Beast podcast, Inside Trump's Head. He said the Democrats are blacking out their faces, and the implication here is that they are blacking out their faces because these might have been victims, I suppose, of Donald Trump. It's a weird signal that is being sent. White House Communications Director Stephen Chung told the Daily Beast in really no uncertain terms, quote, "Michael Wolff is a lying sack of S and has been proven to be a fraud. He originally fabricates stories originating from his sick and warped imagination, only possible because he has a severe and debilitating case of Trump derangement syndrome that has rotted his peanut-sized brain." The president himself was initially asked about these photos and said last week to a group of reporters, "Well, I haven't seen it, but I mean, everybody knows this man. He was all over Palm Beach. He has photos with everybody. I mean, almost there are hundreds and hundreds of people that have photos with him. So that's no big deal. I know nothing about it." And this comes after White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson said in an earlier statement, once again, House Democrats are selectively releasing cherry-picked photos with random redactions to try and create a false narrative. Here's the reality. Democrats like Stacey Plaskett and Hakeem Jeffries were soliciting money and meetings from Epstein after he was a convicted sex offender. The Democrat hoax against President Trump has been repeatedly debunked, and the Trump administration has done more for Epstein's victims than Democrats ever have by repeatedly calling for transparency, releasing thousands of pages of documents, and calling for further investigations into Epstein's Democrat friends. And that's obviously a reference to an investigation that might be happening in New York. By the way, I didn't even mention this aspect. The Donald Trump condom. Got this photo of a card that says Trump condom, $4.50, with what appears to be a bowl containing Trump-branded condoms that says, "I'm huge." CNN reporting that they were created by a shop called Fish's Eddy out in New York City. They're described as political satire in the National Museum of American History's online collection. There's another photo of a pumpkin carved
Trump condoms. Wow.
Out with a face wearing what appears to be a Trump-like wig, sitting on a table with a poster in the back saying, "Trumpkin, make Halloween great again." To be fair, it is not surprising that we're seeing these photos related to Donald Trump because there have been video and photographic evidence of Trump and Epstein together in the past. Trump was a central point of conversation in a lot of Epstein-related communications, particularly in regards to Trump's campaign for president, his actual term as president. We covered this in a previous sidebar. There were messages that were released, like this one from 2011, from Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, his convicted sex trafficker associate, saying, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victims spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." Ghislaine Maxwell writes back, "I have been thinking about that." There's another where he tells author Michael Wolff in 2019, redacted, Mar-a-Lago, redacted. Trump said he asked me to resign, never a member ever. Of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. This is in reference to maybe him being kicked out of Mar-a-Lago. Talking presidents. You know who else is featured in these photos? Former President Bill Clinton. It's a photo from what appears to be years ago, possibly the 90s, featuring Clinton alongside Epstein, alongside Ghislaine Maxwell, and musician Jimmy Buffett and his wife, Jane Slagsvold. Clinton, too, is no stranger to being connected to the Epstein scandal. Vanity Fair had published a photo of him seemingly on Epstein's jet back in 2002. There was another photo of Epstein and Maxwell with then President Clinton back in 1993 at a White House event. It's reportedly in the archives at the Clinton Presidential Library. Clinton himself has confirmed that he was an associate of Epstein, but to be clear, he has always denied any knowledge of Epstein's criminal activity. In fact, there is a 2019 statement explaining how his Secret Service
Bill said he did not have relations with any of those women.
Always accompanied him on trips that he took with Epstein. By the way, Clinton has never been criminally charged or officially implicated in any wrongdoing. And by the way, it was last year when these Epstein files were released that Johanna Schoberg, an Epstein accuser, claimed that Epstein told her Clinton, quote, likes them young, referring to girls. It was reported that Clinton traveled on Epstein's plane for what was described as humanitarian trips to Africa in the early 2000s after he left office. So again, seeing this photo, not a surprise. Okay, let me move on to, I just got to say it, the creepy ones. Yeah, the creepy ones. Photo of Jeffrey Epstein in the bathtub. Stuff of nightmares.
Wow.
Who took that or when? Kind of reminds me of all of those photos that were released of Epstein.
These are 30 other photos that are that have been released so far in the Epstein files.
From his 50th birthday scrapbook, which we went over in a previous sidebar. Then we got this weird selfie of Epstein with what appears to be his lip swollen up. It's weird. Don't know what that's about. Honestly, not sure I even want to. Obviously don't know if he took that, someone else did. Then I got to be kind of careful about this. We have photos of what appear to be sex objects. Again, got to be careful on what we show here, how I describe it. A jawbreaker gag with warning instructions. Someone wearing a black glove with ribbed fingers. You have another photo of BDSM material with a rope and a shibari book, an extreme restraints catalog. Just all very unsettling considering we're talking about the guy who pled guilty back in the day in Florida to procuring a person under 18 for prostitution and solicitation. He was registered as a sex offender. He was subsequently arrested in 2019 for sex trafficking of minors before he died in his jail cell. So to see all this, unsettling. Yeah, unsettling to say the least.
Like, Lord, have mercy. They really doing this. Wow.
Now, there was another figure that has come out in these released photos that we got to talk about. Steve Bannon, former White House advisor. You have one photo of Bannon and Epstein together, sitting opposite each other with a big desk in between. You actually can see what appears to be a framed photo of a woman lying down. Back to Michael Wolff. He said about this photo in that Daily Beast podcast, this is an Epstein study. The study is on the second floor of that mammoth townhouse, what people say might be the largest private residence in Manhattan. Actually, Epstein said this. I'm not sure it's exactly true.
Hey, guys, let's take time to double tap that screen. If you're on a mobile device, double tap your screen. That's how you hit the like button, or click those three dots in the right-hand corner. Hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'm basically giving you everything that I'm finding on the latest drop of the Epstein files.
True, but it's certainly up there. So this would be if you were creating a Jeffrey Epstein kind of diabolical character in the movies. This is the room that the set designer would create for that character. You have another photo of Bannon and Epstein taking a photo together in the mirror. Got another photo of Bannon talking with director Woody Allen, who we're going to discuss more.
Woody Allen.
Another photo of Bannon with socialist activist, philosopher Noam Chomsky, who reportedly was in regular contact with Epstein over the years. But with Bannon, this is, again, not surprising either, since we reported recently in a previous Epstein materials release all of these communications to and from Epstein that were published, including a June 2019 email. So this is right after a photo was taken.
Gloria, she said, I'll tap and subscribe if you let me know who you are. I'm reporting the news, ma'am. I'm a trap anchor man. That's who I am. You know, from Texas. I don't know who Darren is. I seen you typing that. I don't know who that is.
Of Trump shaking hands with Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, during a state visit. Epstein apparently wrote to someone who, according to CNN, appears to be Bannon. Prince Andrew and Trump today, too funny. He added, recall Prince Andrew's accuser came out of Mar-a-Lago. Seemingly, if this is Bannon, appeared to reply, can't believe nobody is making the connective tissue. As reported by the BBC, there was another exchange, for example, from November 2018, where Epstein seemingly helped to arrange Bannon's travel to deliver a speech, to which Bannon replied, quote, "You are an amazing assistant." I mentioned Woody Allen, by the way. You have this photo of Epstein visiting Woody Allen on what appears to be a film set. You have another photo of them together with Epstein.
Woody Allen, no, it was something wrong with him too, man. I'm just saying.
Laughing, this time sitting at a table.
Birds
now,
of
Woody
a feather
Allen
flock
made the
together.
news earlier this year when, according to People, in a birthday letter to Epstein on his 63rd birthday in 2016, he seemingly compared Epstein to Dracula. They were New York City.
Is that Diddy Jet back there? Diddy Jet look just like that. I guess, you know, that's the popular color for people who do activities they ain't got no business. It look just like Diddy Jet.
Neighbors, apparently. Said in part, quote, "Being neighbors, my wife Sunyi and I have been invited for dinner many times. Always accepting, always interesting. Wide variety of interesting people at every dinner just about. Politicians, scientists, teachers, magicians, comedians, intellectuals, journalists, an entomologist, a concert pianist. I say well served often, it's by some professional housemen, and just as often by several young women, reminding one of Castle Dracula, where Lugosi has 3 young female vampires who service the place. The large phone and computer at his right hand does take some of the relaxed home cooking atmosphere out of it, but one can't have everything. Not at Castle Dracula." Okay, but back to the photo release. You got this one, too. Former Harvard professor Larry Summers appears on a plane with Woody Allen in one photo. Now, Larry Summers. The friendship between Summers and Epstein was also well reported, too, with the Harvard paper, The Crimson, revealing Summers had apparently visited Epstein's Island in 2005. Flight records, as part of a lawsuit, revealed that he allegedly traveled on Epstein's plane multiple times. But recently, when all of those emails came out that I mentioned, you see all of these communications between the men, like where Summers was apparently looking to Epstein for romantic advice, with Epstein saying he's a, quote, pretty good wingman for Summers. Summers writing, "I didn't want to be in a gift-giving competition while being the friend without benefits." Got this exchange from just months before Epstein was arrested in 2019, where Summers apparently writes about some woman, "I said, what are you up to? She said, I'm busy. I said, awfully coy you are." Epstein apparently responds, "She's smart, making you pay for past errors." You have another exchange where they discuss Trump, whom Summers called a clown in one 2017 email. So after all this, and as we're thinking about this photo that was just released, Summers released a statement when those messages came out, saying, "I am deeply ashamed of my actions and recognize the pain they have caused. I take full responsibility for my misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein." Now, he stepped back from his duties at Harvard. He resigned from his board position at OpenAI. You go back to the photo release, though, that we're talking about. Richard Branson's in one photo. The billionaire and investor who founded Virgin is seen sitting and smiling with a smiling Epstein behind him. Tropical area. Appears to hold up a page from a notebook with calculations of some sort. And there's a guy sitting next to Branson, by the way, inventor Dean Kamen, who released this statement to WMUR, quote, "I've been a guest of Richard Branson on his Necker Island a number of times for conferences and fundraisers. I believe this photo must have been taken during one of those events."
Well, I guess Trump won line. He said everybody was cool with the guy.
Many years ago. I have no knowledge of any of the horrific actions of Jeffrey Epstein other than what I've learned from news reports. Then you got this photo of who appears to be former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, sitting at a table of some sort. There has been reporting in the past of associations between Barak and Epstein, including business investments. And remember, Epstein was this big financier. He, too, has denied any involvement in Epstein's activities, apparently cut off his relationship with him at one point in time. You have a photo of Jeffrey Epstein and acclaimed Harvard attorney Alan Dershowitz. No shocker there. He was once Epstein's lawyer. This photo actually is not really new. We've seen it before. We also know that deceased Epstein accuser Virginia Roberts Giuffre famously claimed that Dershowitz sexually abused her. But not only did he adamantly deny those allegations, I interviewed him here on Law and Crime, actually, but she actually dropped the legal case that she brought against him, indicating she may have made a mistake. You got this photo of Microsoft founder Bill Gates standing alongside former
Bill Gates is in the files. Lord, have mercy. Michael Jackson, Chris Tucker, Diana Ross. a lot of people, man, you know what I'm saying, was rubbing elbows with this guy.
Prince Andrew, he was actually stripped of his royal titles after the fallout from his connection to Epstein, even though he too has denied any allegations of wrongdoing. You could do a whole episode on all of the connections from Prince Andrew there. You have another photo of Bill Gates with who appears to be Larry Vysotsky, Epstein's former private pilot, with what seems to be Epstein's jet behind. Now, at the beginning of the year, Bill Gates told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "Jeffrey, in retrospect, I was foolish to spend any time with him." And he sort of got time with various people by spending time with other people. So yes, I think I was quite stupid. I thought it would help me with global health philanthropy. In fact, it failed to do that. It was just a huge mistake. You have a photo of who appears to be Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, a business executive from Dubai. His name came up last month in those communications that I keep talking about, those emails, when Epstein said of Steve Bannon, quote, "We have become friends, you will like him." Sulayem responded, "Trump doesn't like him." It's interesting, considering in another exchange, Sulayem appears to ask Epstein, "Do you think it will be possible to shake hands with Trump?" Epstein responds, "Call to discuss." Now, finally, there is just a lot of random photos. There is this shot of a massage therapy system device, which, if anyone knows anything about Epstein, is going to send shivers down your spine, considering the substantial abuse that he and Maxwell inflicted upon minors was in the form of massages. You have a picture of someone holding up a copy of author James Patterson's book. It's about Epstein. It's called Filthy Rich, holding it up in front of their face. You have this picture of a black credenza or side table. But what's notable are the picture frames on the wall above. All blacked out faces, survivors, victims, why are they blacked out? And then you just got one of who appears to be Bill Gates. And then you have this batch of what appears to be a bathroom, presumably from an Epstein property. Then you have all these photos of the interior of the property, including what we discussed on a previous episode of Sidebar, these photos of what seemed to be a dentist chair with masks on the wall. Super creepy. We assume this is of maybe his Caribbean property, Little St. James Island. Then the exterior shots of what appear to be that same property. So look, this disclosure is interesting. It doesn't change the narrative of what we know and who is connected or affiliated to Epstein. But to be clear, once again, all of these photos, after looking at them, there is no evidence of criminal activity or wrongdoing. It doesn't prove anything. It does nothing to rebut the denials of all of those mentioned who have said they did not commit any wrongdoing or misconduct, those who have denied any knowledge of Epstein's activities. But of course, we had to bring this to you, and we wanted to just provide a little bit more context to each photo. We're going to make sure to stay on top of this. When those files are released, probably they'll be released.
So there was something on 30 pictures that were released in the latest dump of the Epstein files, guys. It's crazy, man. These multi-millionaire and billionaires out here doing this sick stuff, just sick. Remember, I told y'all they said Trump's name came up. Check this out.
In Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and these include new details about Epstein's one-time friendship with President Trump. Look, there is a lot to go through. We said it's like more than 10,000 pages, so we are digging through this, but this is what is seen so far. In a 2020 email, an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York wrote that Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet, quote, more times than previously has been reported, at least 8 times between 1993 and 96. And on a flight in 1993, according to the email, there was just 3 passengers, Trump, Epstein, and what's described as a 20-year-old woman. Being mentioned in a trove of investigatory documents does not demonstrate criminal wrongdoing, a reminder, and Trump has not been accused of being involved in Epstein's crimes. On Monday, the president did seem dismayed that the release of any and all of these files, though, could harm the reputations of individuals. He said, quote, "Let's
make sure we take time to double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes up. That's how you hit the like button, double tapping the screen of your mobile device or clicking those 3 dots, hitting that thumbs up. If you would like to support the channel, man, click on the the white over at the bottom of the screen, man. Send a gift. Yeah, this is everything on the latest dump of the Epstein files, guys."
Innocently met Epstein. Now, remember, he is the man they also signed into law last month, a measure requiring the Justice Department to do just this, release the files.
A lot of people are very angry that pictures are being released of other people that really had nothing to do with Epstein, but they're in a picture with him because he was at a party, and you ruin the reputation of somebody.
As we speak, CNN has a team working through the documents just released. We are going to bring you the findings as they come in. CNN's Caitlin Polans is live in Washington this morning. A lot to work through, and we're just getting started. Caitlin, what do you have so far?
We're just getting started, but the headline here is quite clear. Donald Trump is all over these documents. In that first trove that the Justice Department released on Friday, there were just a few very scant mentions of Trump, including in a picture collected with a bunch of other pictures. In this one, there is already one very illuminating email that was sent during the first presidency of Donald Trump while prosecutors in the Southern District of New York were working on the case against Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. This is after Epstein's death. And one of those prosecutors writes, I'm going to read from this letter because it is what was new to the prosecutors at the time and what is new to us now, receiving these documents now in the public sphere from the Justice Department. The prosecutor, unnamed, an assistant U.S. attorney of the Southern District of New York, wrote on January 8th of 2020, the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported.
They say Trump name all in there, guys.
The Justice Department in 2020.
Could that be the reason for this such long delay, guys? They saying Trump name is all off and through there. Lord, have mercy.
Including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case. On one flight in 1993, Donald Trump and Epstein are the only two passengers listed. On another, the only three passengers are Epstein, Trump, and a then 20-year-old. On two other flights, two of the passengers, respectively, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. And then the assistant U.S. attorney concludes this email by telling his or her supervisors or superiors in the Justice Department didn't want any of this to be a surprise down the road. That's a direct quote. Now, Donald Trump, he has not commented yet on this particular revelation in the Epstein files coming out overnight and this morning that we are now surfacing for you here. But Donald Trump has downplayed his relationship with Epstein in the past. And of course, this is something that is documenting his connection to Epstein traveling on that private plane in the 90s. So many years ago, Kate. But Trump even yesterday was saying that everyone was friendly with Epstein. He was all over Palm
Everybody
Beach.
was friendly.
And Ghislaine Maxwell, this past year,
get them all then, get everybody.
The Justice Department talking about Trump, that she never saw him do anything that wasn't gentlemanly, that was any sort of impropriety at all. That said, this is a document that shows the possibility of Donald Trump having an intersection with Ghislaine Maxwell and the criminal case against her in which she was convicted for sex trafficking of minors. Clearly, this did not come out in the trial, but it is a pretty revelatory document. And Kate, it's just one page right now. This is the one page that I've walked you through. There are many, many more documents
that was one page.
Piecing through this morning to see what else may be news here. But Donald Trump is in the latest batch of the Epstein files.
Yeah, much more to come, as Caitlin's laying out very clearly. Caitlin, thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate it. Sarah.
All right, joining me now is Sarah Kristoff, a former U.S. prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. Thank you for being here. Look, the DOJ has said they are releasing these documents more slowly because they are concerned about exposing victims. But in some of the emails that were released Monday afternoon, by Monday evening, some of those documents were taken down. We now know a victim's name who wished to remain anonymous was not redacted. We also know President Trump's name, as you heard there from Caitlin, appears in several places in the latest dump. This is the second time they've released documents only to remove them again. From what you have seen so far, is this just sloppy work from the DOJ, or do you see this as being more calculated?
So it is a hard job to redact these documents appropriately. The law set forth sort of categories of material that could be redacted. The DOJ has to go through these very carefully, make calls about, really page by page about what needs to be redacted.
Now go those blank pages again, heavily redacted.
They have all of the resources in the world to do that. I mean, they have thousands of lawyers, top lawyers, who could be working on these documents, following a protocol, and making decisions. So, I mean, they certainly should be moving quicker than they are, and we shouldn't really be seeing mistakes, particularly mistakes regarding victims' names. But this is a human process and a very laborious, time-intensive process.
And as we go through these, of course, other organizations going through these, the Washington Post saying that the latest tranche of Epstein documents, there was a subpoena sent to Mar-a-Lago in 2021 for records related to the government's case against Ghislaine Maxwell. What do you glean from that?
Yeah, I mean, some of the juiciest stuff really is going to be in internal DOJ emails, right? That's where the prosecutors are talking about their case. That's where they're sort of hashing out the evidence that they're seeing. So we're going to see some good stuff in there, as we already talked about this morning. The other place I think you're going to see really interesting material is in FBI reports, 302 reports, to the extent those are released in unredacted form or partially redacted form, because that's really going to set out the nature of the investigation and the steps that were taken in connection with the investigation.
You just mentioned this. There were a large number of documents showing in this latest tranche the objections filed by Epstein's victims in 2008 after the U.S. attorney in Miami agreed his office would not prosecute Epstein on federal charges in exchange for Epstein to plead guilty to less serious state charges of soliciting prostitution from a minor. What will these documents expose? What will people see in these documents as they're looking at, what happened there in Miami that a lot of victims are very, very upset with?
Yeah, I mean, the course of events here in terms of sort of the Florida prosecution or lack of prosecution and then the subsequent prosecution in the SDNY was sort of very complicated. And we're going to see more details uncovering that, more details about why decisions were made, why charges were brought or not brought. And that, I think, is going to be very illuminating about whether there was sort of political pressure or external forces on decisions that were made internally in these prosecutorial bodies.
There is a lot to go through, and as you said, this is an unprecedented amount of information having to come out of the DOJ, but the law says it was supposed to be out altogether, and now it's coming out in more of a trickle. Sarah Krisoff, thank you so much. I'm sure you will be back when we see more of these documents. Appreciate it.
Jess Michaels is the lead writer of a new statement from Epstein survivors. The statement raises multiple
Shout out to Rika for being a member for the last 15 months. Thank you.
Concerns about the way the release of files has been handled. She explained to CNN that no one from the Justice Department reached out to survivors for their input.
To me, what we're seeing is just an incredibly sloppy and inconsistent and thoughtless process that has been done to try to redact names or leaving things haphazardly unredacted. I felt very strongly that this was a clear-cut, black and white moment. Friday, December 19th at 11:59, if all of the files had not been released publicly, this DOJ had broken the law.
Thank you,
law that took an act of Congress to pass and that the president signed. And to me, that is a point we need to keep talking about. We want to see financial records. We want to see all of the long list of indictments.
Man, and the people are talking, man, especially about these redacted photos, redacted pages, like 550 of them that say absolutely nothing. I mean, it's just crazy, y'all. It's crazy. Let's go here.
With new backlash and a whole new set of questions arising from the third and latest release of Jeffrey Epstein files. As I'm sure you're aware, the roughly 300,000 pages released last week include references and photos of some of the world's richest and most powerful men, from politics to finance to rock and roll. But we again need to point out that simply doing business with Epstein or hanging out with the man was not illegal. As a trial lawyer, let me tell you, there's no such a thing as guilty by association. To date, none of those A-list friends or associate has been charged with being part of Epstein's underage sex crimes or sex trafficking. And there don't appear to be any smoking guns in the latest documents. Mostly grand jury transcripts of law enforcement agents testifying about their interviews with Epstein accusers. Today, a group of survivors accused the DOJ of violating the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
A group of survivors, guys.
Act by, and I quote, withholding massive quantities of documents and by failing to redact survivor identities. In fact, News Nation has verified that some survivors' names are revealed, which does not usually happen in cases like this. And they're not the only ones demanding transparency. Former President Clinton, who's appeared in photos in the Epstein files, issued this statement, quote, what the Department of Justice has released so far and the manner in which it did so makes one thing clear. Someone or
Bill speaking on it, guys. Clinton had to put out, you know what I'm saying? Something, man. They showing this picture, saying this and saying that.
Something is being protected. We do not know whom, what, or why, but we do know this. We need no such protection, end quote. Late today, President Trump
Clinton said he did not have relations with any of those women.
In his own statement,
Deputy photos of Me Too. Everybody was friendly with this guy, either friendly or not friendly, but they, you know, he was around. He was all over Palm Beach and other places.
Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche has said the DOJ will be reviewing and releasing additional files for weeks to come. So the question becomes, how much discretion do the feds actually have in what is released despite the law ordering them to release the files? Can they black out or reveal as much or as little as they want? On their own schedule, clearly. I'm joined now by defense attorney and former federal prosecutor Nadia Shahada. As an assistant U.S. attorney here in New York, she put away the singer R. Kelly for racketeering and sex trafficking. Thank you so much, Nadia, for joining me tonight. So let's start with the big question here. Is the DOJ releasing what they're supposed to? In other words, what protocol or process is in place when there's a law telling the DOJ, you gotta release these files, and they just sort of release them in dribs and drabs in redacted form?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer to your question is no. They are not releasing things as they are supposed to. They are not complying with an act of Congress. Most fundamentally, there was a deadline. It was this past Friday. They did not meet it. They didn't even communicate with Congress to let them know ahead of time, hey, we're not going to be able to make this deadline. So, which also seems to show a bit of a lack of good faith on the part of the Department of Justice here.
So the delay obviously is a problem. And so they are doing it on their own schedule, but also the redactions. I mean, look, I get cases, like you're now a defense attorney, you get discovery and there's names of victims redacted, and that's obviously expected. But there's so much redacted that you can't decipher anything. I mean, what is is there some sort of a protocol that the DOJ has to follow when they decide what they should or shouldn't redact?
Well, this is a unique situation. The protocol here is really in the act of Congress that was passed. It sets out in great detail what they're supposed to produce and what they're permitted to redact. And the redactions are supposed to be limited to victim identifying information, what's known as CSAM, or essentially child pornography, national security or classified information, and some other kind of images of death or injury and that sort of thing. The act also specifically says you cannot redact the names of people other than victims for purposes of embarrassment or, you know, potential people that they looked into as suspects, which is very unusual. Let's make that clear. But there is now a law on the books that is telling them this is what they have to do.
So it sounds like, according to the mandate or the law, there's very little that they could, according to their discretion, redact, right? It would be like CSAM sensitive materials, essentially, right?
Yes.
I will say, though, in his letter to Congress, the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, I think, very interestingly put that that the department was going to withhold certain documents on the basis of three privileges: the deliberative process privilege, the attorney-client privilege, and the work product privilege, which signals to me that they are not planning to produce the most useful documents, which would be things like the prosecution memo, draft indictments, internal communications about who to charge and whether to charge people and who to investigate, which, again, the act that Congress passed specifically requires them to produce those documents.
So I'm starting to see this end up in the court system, essentially, right?
Potentially.
You know, invoking all these privileges that you're talking about, right?
Yes. I think what Congress might try to do first is, you know, there's been talk of holding the Attorney General in contempt or even articles of impeachment. I think a lot of this is about putting pressure now on the Department of Justice to speed things up, to speed up their disclosure of documents, and to potentially produce more than what they intended to initially.
Well, the grand jury testimony, Nadia, is heavily redacted. And there's more black on that page than any space left. And so how broad, when we're talking about the grand jury transcript, how broad is the discretion of the DOJ to redact the grand jury transcript? I mean, one of the things I noticed is that some of the victims' names who wanted to be anonymous were actually not redacted. Like you said, they should have been redacted. Yeah. And then it seems to me like perpetrator names were redacted. So when we're talking about the grand jury transcript, is there a specific criteria for that?
I think, again,
it's against the law for them to redact just to be redacting stuff. You know what I'm saying? They're not supposed to redact because it has the name of a politician or an actress or, you know, an actor or, you know, none of that. They just supposed to, if it incriminate, I mean, if it expose the victim or something like that, some sensitive material, they can redact. But just redacting because it say Trump or redacting because it say Michael Jackson, they ain't supposed to do that.
It's based on what the law says here. And they should obviously be redacting victim names. If they didn't, that's a clear mistake and failure, and I assume unintentional. But I understand that they re-released some of the grand jury material that was completely blacked out has now been released. It looks like the Southern District of New York was using the grand jury less as an investigative grand jury and more as just going to seek an indictment and using an FBI agent or a detective as a summary witness. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure that the grand jury transcripts are where actually the really useful information is going to be.
It would be in those memos.
The memos, FBI 302s, which are reports of interviews. And also, something I don't think we've seen yet is affidavits in support of search warrants. Mm. Those often lay out the evidence at that time in the investigation in detail to convince the judge that there's probable cause.
Why we need to go and search this person's home because this person did X and Y. Yeah, that's the real, yeah. You know, setting aside the left versus right, the political arguments on each side, is the drawn out timing of the release in this drib and drab format, do you see this as a legal problem? Is this going to end up in court?
I mean, it very well could. I think this Department of Justice doesn't seem to be concerned about that. They, in many matters, don't seem to be concerned about the courts.
Hey, guys, let's take a little time to double tap that screen. Most definitely get those likes up, man. Double tap the screen if you're on a mobile device and click the three dots in the right-hand corner. Hit that thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel if you're new, as I bring y'all everything I found on the latest drop in the Epstein files.
And I think they are kind of calling Congress's bluff to see if they're going to enforce the act in any way.
And all of that takes time. What is the end game in all of this? I mean, you know, what can we expect to eventually see? Because at the end of the day, these victims have waited a long time to learn more about, you know, justice in this case. So what is the end game?
I mean, I think the end game that was expected is full transparency to the extent possible. Whether we're actually going to see any more criminal prosecutions, I'm skeptical. I don't have a lot of...
Well, who is you talking to? Roy, I most definitely found all this information and put it together and brought it in one spot for you to watch it at one time. Who are you to tell me what I found? Let's get him right up out of here. Where you at? Your name, Roy? What was your name again? Let me find you, boy. Let me find you. Yeah, Roy Gordon. Let's get Roy right up out of here on the famous rocket ship that Elon Musk just sent us to deport you. You know, from over here. We'll holler at you, dog. You just got deported.
Faith in this current Department of Justice to be bringing additional charges. I also think, you know, the original prosecutors in the Southern District of New York who looked at this in 2019 and 2020, I think they were very good prosecutors. One of them was fired by the Department of Justice recently. And so it's hard for me to see there being new prosecutions, but it is possible if new evidence comes out. You know, there are certain charges where there is no statute of limitations that it is possible.
Especially in this area with sex trafficking and that really was my, you answered my last question, but I'm going to ask you because there's some other details. You know, you obviously were at the helm of the R. Kelly sex trafficking prosecution, so you clearly know how these cases work. Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison. Epstein is dead, whether he took his life or was killed. Do you think there are other perpetrators, and that's really what's going on, that they could potentially, or they're, you know, they are exposed whether or not they'll actually be prosecuted, and that's why there's all these redactions?
I don't know why there's all the redactions, but victims have certainly told reporters and others that they reported on people other than Epstein and Maxwell. So that suggests there are others. We also know.
I like that. It's Cal? Cal say lots of creepy pics, but I haven't seen a single photo of an actual illegal activity. I don't think we should be worried about the redactions. We should be more concerned about what has been deleted. Yeah, that's real. I like that.
That in the initial federal investigation in 2007 in the Southern District of Florida, I believe there was a prosecution memo and a draft indictment that
went away.
Yeah, that indicated co-conspirators. And so I think that is one of the key pieces that victims and the public were looking to see here, and which we have not seen at this point.
Nadia, thank you so much for joining me. Please come back and talk to us some more about this, because clearly it's still going to go on. So it's been barely a week since Robert.
We're not talking about Rhino. We're sticking to Epstein, guys. All right, let's go here real quick. Let's go here. Hold up. Hold on, y'all. Let's go here.
Reality on this. Okay. So there's a little window into how we do things.
Who are the Epstein co-conspirators? Remember, they keep on saying it's 10 potential co-conspirators. When Bundy told us there was nobody else to look into, now we find out that when they were first investigating Epstein, you know, they had 10 co-conspirators that they were looking for. 10!
Here, you know, what I'm reading right now, this intro was actually written by one of my producers, and I actually ask multiple people what their take is on the Epstein release. What matters? What doesn't matter? Why? Because
Pam said there was nobody else to look into, but then the FBI, I guess, when this first happened, was looking at 10 potential co-conspirators. 10.
Perception is reality on this. Okay, it really is what you want it to be. They've released nearly 30,000 pages. Okay. Did you want a lot of pages? Oh, great. So are you satisfied? Of course not, right? It's about what's in them. A lot of redactions. Okay. The law is pretty clear for a law that you're only allowed to redact things that fit into a few categories, okay? One of those categories is not that people are going to be embarrassed and that they may want to sue because you've made them notorious for an allegation that you could not substantiate.
And that's what I kind of told y'all a while ago about what they're able to redact and not redact. They're not supposed to be redacting based off star power, whether they're politicians, actors, NBA players, NFL, whatever. If their names are in there, they're not victims, they supposed to put the names out, but they've been redacting a lot of stuff that may not have anything, to even be redacted for.
Okay, so what are they going crazy about? Online, exactly that. Did you see the letter that Epstein wrote to convicted pedophile Larry Nassar, mentioning our president? Huh? Did you see that? See it? It's all over, right? Oh, you have seen it. Oh, great. Does everybody who show it to you say that the DOJ says the letter is fake? Talk about what they should have redacted.
The DOJ says the letter is fake, guys. Y'all think it's fake? I'm just saying, remember, I told y'all that earlier as well. They were saying that this letter is fake. I don't know. Y'all think it's fake? They saying the DOJ is saying this. Then why didn't they redact this? This shouldn't even be in there if it's not accurate, right?
If it's fake,
there it goes.
It's fake.
The FBI has confirmed this alleged letter from Jeffrey Epstein to Larry Nassar is fake. The fake letter was received by the jail and flagged the FBI at the time. Wow. They saying it's fake.
Why would you release it? You see how crazy are we? How crazy are we? So this is fake, and you're releasing it into a Thunderdome where people weaponize information for profit. How is it making anything better? If you get us the names of people who knew or may have benefited.
It wasn't me, it was AI.
From Epstein's disgusting behavior. After his arrest in 2019, the FBI was trying to contact what they call 10 co-conspirators. Now, the DOJ reacted the names of those alleged co-conspirators. Why?
Could one of them be Trump?
We don't know. Shortly after Epstein died, prosecutors wrote a memo. Potential charges
could one of them be
of Epstein co-conspirators. Again, the names are blacked out. Why release if you don't give us the names? Well, we never made cases against those guys. It's not what the law says. The law doesn't say you can redact what you decided you couldn't corroborate. It's not what the law says. So where does it leave us? Trump's former attorney and former prosecutor of nearly 30 years is named Jim Trusty. I wanted him tonight, and
Geraldo,
my brother and mentor, News Nation correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera. It's good to have you both. I wish you both the best for the holy days, for Christmas, clear eyes, full hearts for the new year. Jim.
In your intro, which is we don't usually go through prosecutors' files, no matter how interested everybody is, no matter how much lip service they give to caring about the victims. This is primarily a political exercise where we're doing something that's just wrong. I got to tell you, prosecutors' files are fluid. They are incomplete by nature. They are rife with moments where victims wouldn't want things disclosed, potential targets wouldn't want things disclosed, witnesses, even law enforcement techniques all get exposed. And I have to start by just saying, Chris, I hate this new regime where we've gone, probably spoiled from special counsel appointments, frankly, where they have an obligation under the law to do a report. Now we're letting everyone and their mother's sister and brother open up files and draw conclusions, looking at things that might be palpable.
Just in case we get separated again, man, make sure you subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss anything when I go live, guys. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you're double tapping that screen. That's how you hit the like button, or click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. This is everything I'm getting on the Epstein files.
Fake and taking them as real, looking at accusations saying, why don't we have more? And so, yeah, ultimately it's fair game to say they redacted too much. The thing looks like an oil slick and they're going to have to dial some of that back, and maybe they will voluntarily, as opposed to endlessly putting Epstein in the news by being in court over these redactions. But I got to tell you, my starting point is kind of sympathy with the idea of redaction, because the whole exercise, I think, is largely warped and largely not helpful for victims.
Now, Geraldo, if I'm arguing this point in any kind of legitimate forum, I'll take Jim's side. not in a court of public opinion. Nobody feels bad for whoever's name has a black stripe over it because we are in hate the rich mode. And people want transparency. And the DOJ seems to have flouted the law and kept transparency out. Do you think they should reveal the names?
Insinuation is not transparency, said Bill Clinton, who was lavishly, promiscuously featured in the first document dumped. He wants everything released right now. Why? Because the way it's been released is highly partisan. I mean, Clinton got bashed, his pictures everywhere in that first dump. Where is Trump? Now Trump begins to appear, but still, like in this picture, here you have a face blacked out. Turns out the face has nothing to do with a teenager, and there's the former president relaxing in the hot tub, and in fact, it is so salacious, the whole notion of it, that your mind turns off, and the transparency. Oh, look, it's not a kid, it's a grown up, or why did you block it out then? I think that the way the redactions have been done is highly partisan. I think this whole exercise so far has amounted to a great big zero. You have a situation where it's been Epstein. What do we know? 10 co-conspirators, they said, back in the 1990s, and their names haven't surfaced yet.
Nope.
Nobody knows who they are or what they purportedly did.
That's unredacted.
I think that it is impossible to have hung out with Jeffrey Epstein and not gotten the vibe from his mansions and ranch and island and that this was a guy with an unhealthy fixation on teenagers. His artwork.
So here's the pushback.
Massages.
Here's the
everywhere.
pushback. Let's say I agree. That's not a legally actionally basis. That you should have known he's a scumbag. You are the company you keep. You should have known. Okay, maybe not. A lot of this work was done after he died, too. 2019, 2022. So it's not all 2 generations removed. Jim, the law is very clear. And you do have the names. And there are people who are survivors, victims, whatever nomenclature you like, who say they did things to them or they knew what Epstein, did to them. Those are supposedly these 10 people. Do you think if those names come out, people will be satisfied?
10 people, guys.
Oh, I'll take the safe bet. Nobody's ever going to be satisfied. There is absolutely no chance. I mean, remember, prosecutors' files, as I said, can be fluid. They can be incomplete. There are things that a prosecutor knows in their head about their investigation.
Right, but under the law,
its way down to a piece of paper.
Under the law, Jim, these names that are redacted on the screen right now, none of them check the box of what you don't have to redact. There's no open case. These aren't victims or survivors that we're talking about. They were supposed to expose these things. Good or bad, they're supposed to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I may disagree with the law, but the law is the law.
Right, the law is the law.
I may be proven wrong. I may be proven wrong about this, but I submit that the 10 Epstein co-conspirators, if they were really co-conspirators and that they were involved in this awful, disgusting abuse and exploitation of children, you would have seen their references a lot more prominently than 10 co-conspirators. Twice, as far as I know, it mentioned just in that language, 10 co-conspirators. How do you know what it is? Like it's some FBI agent. Hey, what about those 10 co-conspirators?
I agree. And people around the process tell me be careful because a lot of them were the named parties in these settlements that happened early on with financial institutions that wound up settling for their involvement with Epstein and what may have helped with his trafficking. All right, I got to leave it there. But I want to thank you both, and I want to wish you the best. Again, clear eyes and full hearts for the new year.
A little bit on what they thinking about with the co-conspirators, guys. Now, remember, they keep on telling us Trump name is most definitely on the list, guys. You know what I'm saying? They saying his name appears. Let's go here.
A new batch of documents in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, including chilling new evidence that some viewers may find disturbing. This is a jailhouse letter, apparently written by Jay Epstein, and it was sent to another infamous sex offender. That would be Larry Nassar. The letter appears to include a reference to President Trump. We should note President Trump is not accused of any criminal wrongdoing. And I just spoke to a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse, Haley Robeson, a short time ago. Here's what she said. And DOJ says some of these things are salacious and there's no truth behind it. That's the statement it just released. But what do you think about the mention of Trump in that letter and what it said?
I think it's very apparent in that specific letter that was just publicized from the Epstein files. I think it's very apparent that there are a group of men that enjoy the company of young women and children. And I think that letter emphasizes that he knew what was going on. And that complicity is enough for me to know you have no business being in the position of power.
Strong words there from Haley Robeson. Let's go live now to CNN senior reporter Marshall Cohen join us here in the Situation Room. So walk us through that letter. What did it actually say, Marshall?
Yeah, Pam. So let's be really clear about what we know and what we don't know. We have actually been aware for a couple years that Epstein tried to send a letter, or maybe did send a letter, to Nassar from prison. That's been out there. We have never seen it before, and it apparently was in the drop today from the Justice Department. It was written to LN, Larry Nassar, on the envelope, and it was signed by Jay Epstein. And it was postmarked just a couple days after Epstein's suicide. No conspiracy there. It's not too crazy to think that prison officials will need to look at stuff before it goes out in the mail. So it's dated just a few days after that suicide, and I will read for you what it said. And as you mentioned, Pam, it's kind of disturbing.
This is the one they say is fake.
As you know by now, I have taken the short route home. Good luck. We shared one thing, our love and caring for young ladies and the hope that they'd reach their full potential. Our president also shares our love of young nubile girls, which is obviously the disgusting words of one sexual predator to another. But I should make...
He wrote this. He knew they was going to intercept this letter. It wasn't going to go where it was supposed to go. Was he trying to send out a message saying, hey, man, Trump in on this too, allegedly? I'm just saying, because you got to know when you're in jail, they take all your mail and go through it. So he had to know that the jail would intercept this letter if it is right, if it is real, right? So could he have been trying to point the finger at Trump through this letter? Let me know.
Clear that Donald Trump has never been accused of any sexual wrongdoing by law enforcement, and obviously he's never been charged with any of these Epstein-related crimes.
And so the short route home reference, do we think that's him talking about dying by suicide? Because it came out a few days after,
the timeline would seem to suggest so.
Yeah. We're also seeing this 2021 Mar-a-Lago subpoena relating to the Ghislaine Maxwell case. This is new, right? Do we not know about the subpoena to Mar-a-Lago?
I didn't know about it. And
okay,
I don't
Marshall Cohen, you've been all over this story.
I don't think it was out there before. Our colleague Michael Williams found it this morning in the batch of 30,000 documents, a subpoena sent by the Justice Department to Mar-a-Lago October 2021, just a few weeks before the start of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. It is redacted, but it is clear through the redactions that they were looking for employment records about someone. We don't know who. But I should point out that we do know that there was one very well-known person that did work at Mar-a-Lago and was actually recruited to work for Epstein, and that was Virginia Giuffre, who was one of Epstein's victims. Not sure if the subpoena is about her, but there's been a lot of talk about her being at both Mar-a-Lago and Epstein's estate, and she died by suicide earlier this year.
Yeah, very sad. How is the DOJ responding to all of these revelations? Because it put out a statement with this batch, but not the first one.
They went on the offensive this morning and on offense to defend Donald Trump. Let me read for you what they put out in a tweet this morning as they rolled out this batch of tens of thousands of files. They said some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, these claims are unfounded and false. If they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against Trump already. So framing the entire conversation right off the bat to say, if you see stuff about Trump, don't believe it. But as the woman you just spoke to in the last hour made clear, there's a lot of stuff in here that has been vetted and verified. Maxwell was convicted. Epstein, before he was charged with the federal case, he had been convicted in a state case 20 years earlier. So, the Justice Department sort of massaging the situation here, trying to defend Trump. But as we've seen, there's a lot of stuff in here that has been verified and has vindicated a lot of those victims.
All right, Marshall Cohen, thank you as always. I know you and the team have a lot of work going through these documents.
I want to bring in Nick Ackerman, former Assistant Special Watergate Prosecutor. He joins us by phone. So, Nick, a letter like that from Jeffrey Epstein in the days before he took his own life. Epstein, of course, who had a plea deal from years before and was accused of sexual abuse at the time he wrote it. A letter like that written to another sex abuser. Does it have any legal significance?
Well, I don't know how much legal significance it has. It certainly corroborates what.
Now, remember, the DOJ and Trump both say this letter is not real. This is fake. I don't know what y'all think.
Heard from other victims that Donald Trump had an inclination to grab women and misuse his position in various ways before he became president. And it's consistent with all these other people have said. And it's also consistent with Donald Trump's 50th birthday wish to Jeffrey Epstein. So whether or not this would be admissible in a court of law is a whole different story. But certainly from a political standpoint and from the fact that this is something that Jeffrey Epstein was saying, we know that they were very close and they're very good friends. And that this is pretty damning. To go on with this letter, it says in that letter, when a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab, snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system, meaning the prison system. And he signed it saying, "Life is unfair, yours, J. Epstein." So you've got two, essentially, abusers that are writing to each other, and in the course of that, Jeffrey Epstein references Donald Trump, who has gotten away with all of this.
It is worth noting, obviously, that President Trump or Donald Trump not charged with anything in connection with Jeffrey Epstein at all. It's also possible that Jeffrey Epstein was trying to stick it to Donald Trump, who was president at this point, the moment that the letter was written. Of greater, perhaps, legal significance, Nick, is the other information that came out overnight. A letter written by an attorney for the Southern District of New York, which indicated, and this is a verbatim, that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously had been recorded or that we were aware. And at times, on two of the flights, two of the passengers were women who would be possible witnesses in a Ghislaine Maxwell case. Now, again, this letter was written at the time, late in Donald Trump's first term when he was president. But the idea that Trump had been on a plane with two people who were witnesses, potentially, in a federal case, what's the significance there?
Well, the significance is that Donald Trump would, of course, be a potential witness as well, which means that he could have been called at the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. So that's pretty shocking, the fact that he could have been called as a witness. That's something that I don't think has been reported before. And it also goes to Donald Trump's knowledge of what Epstein was doing. I mean, don't forget, he's been backing off at every point he can, claiming that he had no idea that Jeffrey Epstein was doing anything illegal. But as these Epstein files come out with the drip, 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 we have learned that Donald Trump knew a bit more than he's acknowledged. For example, there's the email of April 2nd, 2011, where it reflects an email between Epstein and Maxwell, where it says that Donald Trump spent hours in Epstein's house with Virginia, who is one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual escapades.
Of course, Virginia Giuffre, before she died, said that Donald Trump did not do anything wrong or untoward. And it's also worth noting that the plane trips in question here were between 1993 and 1996, a time before Epstein was charged with anything. Nick Ackerman,
all right, more on the 10 co-conspirators, guys. You know what I'm saying? More on the 10 co-conspirators. Let's go here.
Brings the total number of files released to over 30,000. And the main impression as folks try to make sense of it all, including in our newsroom, is that it feels like once again we're being kind of sprayed with a fire hose of sewage. I mean, it's full of mistakes and omissions, questionable redactions, even salacious allegations from a tip line. Some documents have been disappearing from the DOJ's webpage after they were published, and Trump's people seem to be happy to make a mess of it all. In fact, that sort of seems like the point. I mean, keep in mind the context here, right? They hate the law that Congress passed, forcing them to release the files. They fought it tooth and nail. They hate the concept of transparency. And Trump has been very clear that he would prefer to protect people. Well, some and not others.
I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago. And they're, highly respected bankers and lawyers and others.
Won't someone think of the bankers and lawyers? As congresspeople from both sides have been saying, protecting a bunch of bankers or lawyers because they're highly respected is violating both the spirit and the letter of the law. Again, you can disagree with the law, but Donald Trump signed that into law. And despite all that, there are some really valuable pieces of information the public is learning from the files once we kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. Today, for instance, we learned that during Trump's first term, this is back in January 2020, an assistant U.S. attorney wrote an internal email about a review of flight records as part of the government's case against Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, who has subsequently been transferred to a low-security prison after talking to Trump's attorney, Don Blanche. And this is what the email says. For your situational awareness, wanted to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported or that we were aware, including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case, the email states. In other words, during a period in which crimes were being committed. The email added that Trump had been on at least 8 Epstein flights. On one flight in 1993, he and Epstein are the only 2 listed passengers. On another, the only 3 passengers are Epstein, Trump, and then 20-year-old redacted. That seems like a...
Hold on. We got to stop this. Breaking news. The DOJ just says it uncovered over 1 million more documents related to Epstein, guys. So they just reported this like 10 minutes ago that they have found 1 million more documents.
5 days since the deadline mandated by law for the Department of Justice to publish all files and materials related to accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
They say they found 1 million more files, guys.
Is a slow, incomplete release. Some documents have had seemingly haphazard redactions, and some files have been removed altogether after being released. And in just the last hour, the Department of Justice announcing this: over 1 million more documents have just been uncovered. In a social media post, the DOJ goes on to add, quote, due to the mass volume of material, this process may take a few more weeks. The department will continue to fully complete.
1 million more just appeared out of nowhere, guys. What is going on? 1 million more files have just mysteriously appeared out of nowhere. I'm talking about thin air.
Department of Justice announcing this: over 1 million more documents have just been uncovered. In a social media post, the DOJ goes on to add, quote, due to the mass volume of material, this process may take a few more weeks. The department will continue to fully comply with federal law and President Trump's direction to release the files. That follows a report from Axios saying that the administration expects at least another week of release and that there are still roughly 700,000 files remaining.
700,000 remaining.
DOJ made that post.
And they found another million.
Has known about the December 19th deadline since the Epstein Transparency Act was signed into law on November 19th. And some lawmakers are now accusing the Department of Justice and the White House of a cover-up. One of the authors of the law mandating the files released, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna, says the DOJ is ignoring the spirit of the law, and he and his Republican co-sponsor of that legislation, Thomas Massie, are prepared to do something about that.
What we are going to do is hold Pam Bondi in contempt, and she's going to have a $5,000 fine every day that those documents all get released. We're getting Republican support for that. I think they thought this would go away because we're coming to Christmas and the holidays. Massey and I are not going to let it go away, but the country is not going to abandon these survivors.
Now, this morning, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski joined 11 Senate Democrats in demanding that the DOJ Inspector General conduct an audit of the DOJ's failure to release the files. Now, in a letter to the Inspector General, the senators write in part, quote, given the administration's historic hostility to releasing the files, politicization of the Epstein case more broadly, and failure to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a neutral assessment of its compliance with its statutory disclosure requirements is essential. Joining us now, MS Now senior White House reporter Vaughn Hilliard, MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell, former state attorney for Palm Beach County Dave Ehrenberg. Vaughn, it's been 1 hour. I know what you're doing, and you're just scouring all of your sources, looking at what you're reporting, an additional 1 million documents. What have you learned since this came out an hour ago?
It's remarkable in terms of the scope and the fact that it is being acknowledged by the DOJ that these files from the Southern District of New York, which picked up the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell back in 2019, and the FBI were both responsible for these documents. It is not clear how the Department of Justice over the course of the last 10 months and the better part of the last month, ever since this was passed into law by Congress and signed by President Trump, putting that Friday deadline into effect, as to how they were not aware, the main Department of Justice here in Washington, D.C., that they were not in possession of these documents. And this is as there was already a slow roll of release that pertained to the 10 co-conspirators, 7 whose names were redacted, in questions for the survivors, victims, and the American public about whether the assertions that have been made now by multiple Department of Justices about those who were in positions of power and associated with Jeffrey Epstein were held to account in the way that potentially the public would see fit. And now the fact that they are here on this Christmas Eve, 5 days after that Friday deadline, more than a month after it was signed into law, more than 10 months after Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice asserted that all criminal, that the investigation led to the appropriate criminal indictments, in this case, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and that there were other subjects that were not pertinent or were not deemed by the DOJ.
Can we get the lights over 400, guys? Double tap that screen if you don't mind. It helps out the channel. If you're on a mobile device, double tap that screen or click the 3 dots in the right-hand corner, hit that thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, man, click on that oval down there, man, and send a gift, man. This is crazy, y'all. It's like something out of a movie. They found 1 million more documents of the Epstein files, guys. 1 million more just appeared out of nowhere.
To have charges brought against them. I think in so many ways, the fact that the Department of Justice is acknowledging this is really calling to question for a great many across Washington and the country about what testaments have been made by the DOJ prior to today.
Thank you, Kay.
Oh, the host of questions that certainly are being asked right now is what you're saying, Vaughn. Dave, you know, just trying to make this practical for a moment. 1 million more documents, let's say they're 3 pages each. That's about 1,000 feet tall. Do you just open a door one day and you say, oh, there's 1 million more? How does this happen?
Government inefficiency is probably the most benign way to explain it, but this will just fuel more conspiracies and a controversy already overflowing with them. And it's further reason why the best approach is just to release everything with only the victim identifying information being redacted. Instead, we get this drip, drip, drip. It's a self-inflicted wound by the White House. It's got to be damaging President Trump politically. At the very least, it's damaging trust in our institutions, although that may be a lost cause at this point. You know, the Epstein survivors have been let down so many times over the years by prosecutors and politicians, and now these new releases confirmed that there were indeed co-conspirators in the crosshairs of federal prosecutors, but it dates all the way back to the George W. Bush administration, where the only two people ever charged with a crime here are Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Michael, you heard what Ro Khanna was saying day by day. That's $5,000 more potentially for Pam Bondi. At least that's what he's pursuing here. Have you heard anything new on this development from lawmakers? And do reflect on what Ro Khanna was saying.
Yeah, well, Richard, we actually have a new statement out from Ro Khanna just within the last hour in response to that DOJ statement that they just got word of 1 million, maybe more documents. Ro Khanna saying that him and Thomas Massie will continue to keep this pressure on, writing, quote, after we said we were bringing contempt.
Guys, are y'all hearing this? These people are saying 1 million, over 1 million new documents. 1 million. Not a couple hundred, not even a couple thousand, but 1 million new documents they just found. Like, oh yeah, it's over here in the corner in this box. Come on, man. What's going on, man? Is this not a cover-up? Let me know. Happy holidays, IGT and Mahel. We appreciate you. We appreciate you too, Miss Pooh Bear. Yeah, man, but just 1 million out of nowhere. How do you lose over 1 million documents?
The DOJ is now finding millions more documents to release. They need to release the 302 FBI statement and the emails on Epstein's computer. The Epstein class must go. Now, we're also hearing from senators as well. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying that on this Christmas Eve, the DOJ saying it has millions more documents to go through, calling that, quote, a cover-up, and saying justice delayed is justice denied. Release the files, follow the law. And of course, Richard, this just raises more questions of where were those files? As Vaughn mentioned, why wasn't the SDNY aware these were in its possession? How did Maine Justice not know about this? It's just raising more questions, and it basically means that we're going to continue talking about these Epstein files. The DOJ saying it could take weeks more to go through these documents. Well, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, to your point of what you just mentioned before, Richard, they are still moving ahead with this inherent contempt charge. Essentially, if successful, and what's notable about inherent contempt, it only requires approval from the House. It doesn't need to go through the Senate, and it doesn't need President Trump's pen to be enacted. If inherent contempt passes in the House, that means Pam Bondi could face a $5,000 fine every single day that all of these files are not released. And it comes back to the idea that this bill that was first introduced over the summer took a while to get a...
Man, this ain't no old news guy. Patty, Patty, this ain't old. This just happened. They just found this million like 30 minutes ago. What are you talking about? Oh, it ain't old. It's new. They found over 1 million documents like 30 minutes ago.
Floor vote, what was passed
what are they talking
about? Through both chambers of Congress. It said that all documents had to be released within 30 days. The fact of the matter is the DOJ has not done that, even more so now, saying it just learned of 1 million more documents. So certainly the frustration is continuing and mounting along lawmakers, and we're hearing from a number of them that they plan to turn this anger into action.
David, how big is the legal jeopardy here for Pam Bondi? You know, as Michael was laying out, the $5,000 per day personally Pam Bondi may have to pay. Is that correct? And this could be a very large amount, especially given the number of weeks, the number of lawyers that they may or may not have that they'll need to go through 1.7 million documents.
Richard, I'll believe it when I see it. This power of inherent criminal contempt has not been used by Congress.
1.7 million documents they got to go through. Good Lord.
in nearly 100 years. Not even sure it's constitutional. We'll see if the Supreme Court, which has given extreme deference to the executive branch, is going to allow this. They believe in the executive or the unitary executive theory. I can't imagine they're going to allow the legislative branch to start fining executive branch employees. So I don't think that's going anywhere. I think part of the problem, Richard, is that this act, the Epstein Transparency Act, is riddled with loopholes, and it does not have an enforcement mechanism. So Congress should have put an enforcement mechanism, a penalty in there. They did not. They created all these loopholes for national security and whether or not the documents are unclassified. They can withhold documents for existing criminal investigations. And so I think part of the problem is that Congress should have done a better job writing a tighter act here. So I don't believe they're eventually going to be able to use their inherent criminal contempt powers, but they can threaten and control all they want.
Vaughn, how has the White House responded so far? And this, given the Transparency Act was a bipartisan effort here, is there a worry from staffers, from the administration?
There has been silence from this White House here today. There was silence yesterday when we asked for a statement from the White House as it pertained to the release of the documents by the Department of Justice. The White House directed us to the Department of Justice's own social media posts, which have called the reporter a dope. Looks more like a defense lawyer for Donald Trump, calling the claims or the material related to him that was revealed to be untrue and sensationalism. The president posted today, Merry Christmas, but he is down at his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida. And we heard from him the other night on this front, where he shared sympathies for former President Bill Clinton and others who were appearing in the material release here, seemingly acknowledging that he, among others, were going to have more scrutiny placed upon them because of their prominence inside of these newly public documents.
You know, Michael, getting this Transparency Act passed took many, many cycles. There are some threats and saber rattling, as we've been talking about, coming from Kana as well as Messi. Will they have the fortitude to come back to this and come together again? It was not easy to get to this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, Richard, this is all going to be a numbers game, right? It takes any bill in the House to pass. It takes 218 members. Now, one would think, considering the vote in the House for the Epstein Files Transparency Act was everyone in support except for just one member, 427 to 1, folks would think that this inherent contempt effort would sail through, but it's way murkier than that. On the Democratic side, Democrats have a very checkered history when it comes to inherent contempt. There have been examples in the past where they have looked into the idea of potentially using it for their own benefit, for their own issues. But then there was an example of just last year when Republicans tried to use it for then Attorney General Merrick Garland, and Democrats had slammed it, were up in arms over this idea and really criticized the arcane and long dormant mechanism. On the Republican side, it's going to be a way murkier decision that they have to make, because you have Republicans who are very frustrated about the rollout of these Epstein files, who for years have been calling for these documents to be released. But then again, signing on to this inherent contempt effort would mean that they are directly rebuking a member of the Trump administration. And we know we just don't see that a lot of the time. I was talking to one House Republican earlier this week who said that the rollout puts them between a rock and a hard place. And then when you just talk about the idea of inherent contempt on its face, as was mentioned, this hasn't actually been successful since 1934, almost a century ago. So it's a very arcane, as I mentioned, long dormant mechanism. So whether or not folks will want to get on board with this is an open question. But that all being said, Massey and Khan is still moving forward with this. They're drafting that resolution. It would be up to $5,000 a day for Pam Bondi that these documents are not released. They say they're going to go through with it, but the road to 218, that is going to be the big question in the House.
The blame game begins, restarts again.
Yeah, so that was something on the 1 million newly discovered files in the Epstein situation, guys. We got Trump participating in a Christmas event. Let's see what Trump doing.
Dollhouse, I think we can work that out. I have a feeling, Mommy, that we can work that out, right? I think Santa's going to bring you the most beautiful dollhouse you've ever seen, okay? Let me know how good the dollhouse is, but We owe a lot to Santa.
This is live, guys.
I think Santa will fulfill your wish, okay?
Sound like he talking to kids on the phone.
Take care of yourself. Merry Christmas. Say hello to Oklahoma. We love Oklahoma, okay? Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, darling. Thank you very much. Okay, next.
Emily, you hear me?
Figure you should hear some of this, otherwise you're not going to know what's going on.
Oh, maybe she's shy, right?
What's up, Bobby?
Very good at not listening to this. She's very focused. First Lady's very focused.
Happy holidays to everybody out there, man. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
It's Christmas
go ahead.
Eve.
Next one.
Happy holidays to y'all. Tomorrow's Christmas. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, Mr. President, we're about to drop the next one into your Yes, so I think it's best if they go to sleep. Emily, it's best if you go to sleep.
They're talking to kids on the phone, like Santa Claus. Like
It's better for the
that's what they doing. This is Trump Christmas event.
And she's able to focus totally without listening to this. At least this way you know what's happening, right?
Shout out to the gifts. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, we are passing you to Savannah. She's 8 years old and she's from Salisbury, North Carolina.
Good, good. Hi, how are you? Merry Christmas.
It is, yes, correct. Send
Hi,
my love
how are you
and
doing?
Merry
Okay?
Christmas to you and your family. Yes.
Oh, that's good. I'm fine. You sound so beautiful and cute. How old are you?
I'm 8.
Wow, so smart. You sound so smart.
Ain't this crazy? Right after hearing about this stuff on Epstein, then Trump goes live, you know, with a Christmas event talking to little kids. Wow.
I don't know. So, will Santa ever get mad if we don't leave him out any cookies?
This was getting good. Well, go ahead, say it again, honey. Go ahead. Will Santa ever get mad?
Will Santa ever get mad if we don't leave him out any cookies?
I think he won't get mad, but I think he'll be very disappointed. You know, he tends to be a little bit on the cherubic side. You know what cherubic means? A little on the heavy side. I think Santa would like some cookies. You'd like to leave some cookies for Santa, right?
Merry Christmas. Yes.
But you're not going to forget. You'll leave some. I would leave them. I think Santa has a serious appetite.
Yes.
Right? And it's so good to talk to you.
I ain't seen one of those phones in forever, guys.
From Santa?
That's a classic
What would you
right
like
there.
to have as a present?
You can't even find a phone like that no more. Where'd you get that from, Trump? That's an antique.
Right, that's nice, honey. Well, you just take care of yourself. North Carolina is a great place. It's a great place.
Yes.
And you have you're surrounded by great people and great parents, and say hello to them.
Thank you,
okay?
lady.
Okay.
Thank you, honey. Take care of yourself. Good. Say hello to Santa if you should see him. Goodbye. Bye. Thank you, General. Go ahead.
What did you ask Santa for?
Oh, Trump. This is live, guys. Him and the First Lady are participating in some kind of calling of the kids.
Yes, Mr. President, your operator will be dropping another child on your line here in just a second.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Nice
So
setup,
Merry
right?
Christmas.
That's beautiful. But this way you can hear what's going on. I think it's a little bit better.
Oh, that's very nice.
One-sided calls are never good.
I wish you all the best, all your family.
But they're much less.
Somebody says she's talking to her boyfriend. Let's go.
From Anthony, Kansas.
Good.
And Santa is currently in Sweden.
Okay. Santa's in Sweden.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for the gift, Miss Pooh Bear.
Hi. How are you?
How long until Santa will be?
Okay, well, Santa's now in Sweden.
Infamous said, I would not let Trump talk to my kid.
To get to your
nasty
great
old
area,
man.
your great part
Let's
of the
go.
world, because you live in a Terrific place. But I would say Santa will make it in record time, probably in about 5 hours. 5 hours from now, Santa will be coming down your chimney and have a beautiful present for you. What would you like Santa to bring?
Oh, man.
Not cold.
Not cold. No, you don't want cold. Well, cold is, you mean clean, beautiful cold. I had to do that, I'm sorry. No, coal is clean and beautiful. Please remember that at all costs. But you don't want clean, beautiful coal, right?
No.
What would you like?
Barbie, American Girl doll.
Barbie, okay. Well, you'll get that, I'm sure. What else? Anything else? Clothes, good. That's good.
Candy.
Candy, well, candy is good. Candy is good. Do you eat candy? Do you eat much candy?
No.
Well, you eat as much as you want. Be healthy, okay? But Santa's gonna be there in about 5 hours, leaving Sweden right now. He's taking care of Sweden, leaving right now, okay?
Okay.
And he's gonna have beautiful presents, and say hello to your mom and dad, okay, honey?
Okay.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. Take care of yourself. Sounds like you have a beautiful daughter. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Hello.
It's fun, right? Yes.
Howard?
This is America.
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready, General. See, she just keeps storming through.
It's Christmas Eve, guys. Merry Christmas to all out there. Merry Christmas to y'all. Make sure you double tap that screen, hit that like button. You know, click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. This is Trump and the First Lady participating in some kind of Christmas cause to kids.
Mr. President.
Do you know where Santa is
Okay.
right now?
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's over Sweden. He's over Sweden. Yeah? You tracking him? Yeah?
Sorry, it takes a second to get them from line to line.
Okay, that's okay.
Perfect.
No
What
problem.
did you ask Santa? What do you want for Christmas? You don't know.
Somebody said, bet they can't understand nothing she's saying.
Okay. So.
No ceiling height
he's
problem.
in
Plenty of room for you.
So he will be.
We're 7 gifts away from completing the goal of 50, guys. If you're wondering what that white oval does, click on it. Send a gift to the channel, man. Shout out to everybody out there.
You do? How old are you? Brother, okay. Say hello to him. And
Mr. President, we
he's
are
very
connecting
small
you
then.
to Cruz.
Take
He
care
is
of
5
him,
years old
okay?
from State Commonwealth,
Give him a big
Pennsylvania.
hug.
And
have a Merry Christmas.
for Copenhagen, Denmark.
Whoa, that's pretty
Merry
good.
Christmas. You too.
Hi,
Thank you.
how are you?
Thank you. Merry Christmas, Mom.
Thank you, Miss Pooh Bear.
Pennsylvania.
Right, I know. Oh, Pennsylvania's great. We won Pennsylvania. Actually, 3 times, but we won Pennsylvania. We won it in a
this is
landslide,
real.
So I love Pennsylvania. So Santa right now is in Copenhagen, Denmark, and he's heading toward our country. What would you like from Santa?
A sweetie pen, and I want a glazed sticker, and I want science stuff, and a robot.
Well, you'll get all of it. Mom, I think he's going to get all of it, don't you think, from Santa?
Thank you. Merry Christmas, General.
I think so. He was really good.
Thank
Well, he sounds like he's good. Sounds like he's got a good mom too, right?
Yeah. You love President Trump, right?
That's so nice.
Yeah. I love it.
Oh, wow. I'll bet your mom voted properly.
One of them kids need to ask them about the Epstein files.
wonderful place you come
That
from.
would be something.
We have very good feelings about it. We did so well there.
Shout out to
I
Infamous
appreciate
for
it,
that
Bob.
gift.
Okay, Pennsylvania's a great place, really great place. So I want to thank you and good luck. And I hope you get everything you want. But I think Santa will come through. He's heading here from Denmark, and he should be here in about 5 hours. But you'll be sleeping, right? You sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you're going to be the happiest young man. Okay. You're excited.
Thank you.
I'm excited too, because the country's doing well. And Mom, thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Mom.
Shout out to everybody who contributed. We most definitely hit the goal of 50 gifts. Thank y'all. I most definitely appreciate it. As we sit here and listen to Trump take calls from kids on Christmas, guys. That's pretty much what we're watching right now after his name was all through the Epstein files. I'm talking about all through there, you know, and they found 1 million more documents. But I'll tell y'all a little bit more about that in a minute. Man, continue to double tap that screen. That's how you hit the like button, or click those 3 dots, hit those thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up if you have not. That's how you like the channel, guys. Make sure you're liking the video. It most definitely helps out the channel.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas, President Trump.
And you too and your whole family. Thank you, darling. Take care of yourself. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Nice, right? Could do this all day long. We have to get back to China, Russia, Ukraine. We have to get back to other things, but you could do this all day long. Okay, General, we're ready.
Yes, Mr. President, we'll work another one through.
Okay. .3 GDP yesterday. It was 2 points more than they thought. People were shocked. The tariffs did it. When the tariffs came through, as I said they would.
Talking about the tariffs, we done got off subject. What's up, QI?
I don't think the kids are too interested in that. I think they like to talk about other things. How are you doing, First Lady? Oh, look at you.
I'm waiting for a phone call.
Is this the greatest First Lady? People love our First Lady, right, honey? Look at her. How elegant is the First Lady? Look at you.
Well, she gonna leave you and write a tell-all, Trump, put all your business in the street. Watch, allegedly. I'm just saying. When she leave you, she gonna write a tell-all book.
Okay, good. General, I'm ready.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think they have one coming through right now.
See, we put a general in charge because we want to make sure it works out right.
He say she don't even like Trump. Allegedly, let go.
Did you make a Christmas list? Yes?
You guys going back or are you going to stay here? Exciting time, huh? For the country, it's exciting. We're doing well. Sir.
Awkward. This wasn't well put together right here. Just dead space, man. As Trump thinks about the Epstein files. About to fall asleep.
They're phone for you. He's age 10 and second age 6. They're from near Tacoma, Washington.
Good. Wow. That's great. Hi. How are you both? Okay?
Yeah, Spencer, a second, you are on phone with the President of the United States.
And you know who I have here with me? The First Lady. We have the First Lady of the United States. That's exciting. That's more exciting than the President, actually. That's cute. Go ahead, say it. So, and what do you want from Santa?
That's a hard one. For me, I probably most want to see the
You want what?
A Kindle.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. Well, you must be a high IQ person. We need more high IQ people in the country. So, we definitely need more high IQ. So,
I was like the most I'll make pinball machine.
no pinball machine. That's great. You know, Elton John, he did Pinball Wizard. We'll have to send you a copy of Pinball Wizard. Well, that sounds great, actually. So Santa's not going to let you down.
Pinball Wizard, okay?
Santa. Not going to let you down. Mom, how are you doing? Okay?
We're fantastic, sir. Thank you so much for accepting their call.
Oh, absolutely. You sound fantastic. And the kids sound great, right? They sound great. The country's doing well. We've saved our country. Our country was not going so good. Now it's doing great. Great numbers, great everything. So we're in very good shape. It's going to be a good Christmas.
That kid don't know nothing about no Elton John.
Thank you, and I think that Santa's going to really be good to you tonight. Be coming to your area in about 6 or 7 hours when you're sleeping, but Santa's going to be very good to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. And have a great Christmas. And Mom, have a great Christmas, okay? And your family.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. You sound so great. You sound great, and your kids sound great. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
You sound great, and your kids sound great.
Nice talking to you. And General, thank you very much. You did a good job. That's not easy coordination, actually. Thank you. You too, General. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye.
Goodbye.
Good job, right?
Thank you, Press.
I mean, they did a good job. Thank you all very much. Good job, buddy. That was good that you heard that, right? Yes, sir. That's what she's listening to, too. Good job, buddy. You know, if you want, is that camera off now? That's the main camera. Want to turn that off?
So you want to turn that off? Is it off? Trump got something you want to say.
Broadcasting into the studio?
He said, is it off?
I want it off.
He wanted off. Yeah, he wanted off. Trump had some things he wanted to say, guys. He said he wants it off. You know, is that camera off? Is that camera right there? That main one right there? That camera, is it off? Yeah. Well, it can be. What do you want, Trump? I want it off.
If you want, is that camera off?
Yeah, is that camera off right there? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we're gonna say that right there, just for Trump, guys, as he's been implicated. Once again, you know, basically in the new releases of the Epstein files, guys. You know, Trump name appears. Most definitely was a letter that was allegedly wrote by Jeffrey Epstein himself to another PDF file. And it had Trump's name off in it. You know, Trump administration says that it is fake, guys. Says that letter right there is not real. It is fake. Don't believe it. If you see something with Trump name in it regarding the Epstein files, do not believe it. That's what his team said. That's what the DOJ said. We just watched them make, take phone calls for kids on Christmas Eve. Most definitely Pam Bundy is looking to be held in contempt at a $5,000 a day that she has to pay for as long as it takes for her to release all the files. They found 1 million more files, Bundy and them did, within the last hour. So there's 1 million more. 1 million, I think they said 1,700,000, 1,700,000 or 7,000 or something like that, 700,000 files to go through, with this new million that they have found. I said, wow, man, this is more like a movie than real life, but it's actually happening in real life. Billionaires and millionaires, doing unthinkable with little ones. That's crazy, y'all. Who would ever thought? But you know, today I brought y'all, that was everything that that I've been seeing as far as the new batch of released Epstein files go. A lot of pictures, you know, with no real context. You heard one of the victims say, man, this is trash. Yeah, she did not like what they put out. She said it's trash. But yeah, it's getting real interesting, guys. It's getting real interesting. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you subscribe. I covered everything in my title and a little bit more, man. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. Most definitely double tap that screen if you have not. That's how you hit that like button, or click the 3 dots in the right hand corner, hit that thumbs up, and most definitely subscribe to the channel if you are new, if you like this brand of entertainment, guys. Remember to turn your notification bells on to all, you know, make so that way you don't miss anything when everything news goes live, man. Yeah, man, this is crazy. Shout out to my old subscribers as well as the new ones. We on the road to 59K, guys. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. We're gonna need y'all help to get us to where we're going, man. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe. Most definitely shout out to the old subscribers as well as the new subscribers. Shout out to my members, man. The old ones as well as the new ones. Shout out to anybody that sent a gift, man. Y'all helped me complete that 50 gift goal. I most definitely appreciate anybody who donated. Most definitely thank you very much. You know, and most definitely the specialists, I made up a word, but a special shout out to my moderators, man. Y'all most definitely keep this chat rolling smooth, and I most definitely appreciate y'all, man. So until the next installment, y'all stay safe. Y'all already know how this go. Sidewalk Gang, checking out. I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Y'all be good. Make sure you subscribe. Turn your notification bell on to all. That way you don't miss nothing whenever everything news goes live. I'm gone.